AITA for breaking up with my boyfriend over a word search book. I'm still in shock and trying to process everything that happened, so I'm reaching out for advice. This is a throwaway because he knows my regular account. For context, my boyfriend, 31M, and I, 28F, have been together for 2 years. For my birthday in October, he gifted me a word search book. It was a bit quirky but sweet. It seemed like something fun to unwind with after a long day. There was just one catch: the book only had one word hidden in it, the word fox. It was a puzzle book where you search for that word, page by page, and I thought it would be a relaxing challenge. I'm someone who loves difficult puzzles, and I genuinely enjoyed it. Each night for the past 2 months, I'd go through the pages, carefully scouring the grid. I was so excited to eventually find the word, even if it took a while, because that's part of the fun for me. Fast forward to a few days ago, after spending nearly 2 months looking, my boyfriend casually dropped a bombshell. He admitted that he had cut out the page with the word fox on it. He'd been watching me spend hours every day looking for it, knowing the whole time that the word wasn't even in the book. I was crushed. It wasn't just about the word search, it was about how long he let me waste my time, how he watched me get excited and frustrated, and never once told me the truth. I confronted him and told him that if he could keep this from me for so long, then I couldn't trust him anymore. I told him we were done. I know it sounds silly, it's just a word search, right? But it wasn't really about the puzzle. It was about the fact that he ruined something I genuinely enjoyed for his own amusement. I felt so disrespected and manipulated, like he didn't care about my time or my feelings. Now, he's texting me, saying it was just a joke, and that he thought I was enjoying myself. He keeps saying it wasn't meant to hurt me, and I'm just overreacting. But I can't shake the feeling that it's more than just a harmless prank. I feel so betrayed, and I'm struggling to get over it. So, here I am, wondering, am I overreacting? Should I have handled this differently? Or was this behavior just a red flag I shouldn't ignore? Stories number 2. My patronizing coworker interrupts meetings to explain basic things to me. I'm writing about something that's been bothering me for far too long. My coworker, Craig, mid-40s, male, has this habit of chronically interrupting meetings, supposedly to help me, I'm in my mid-50s, female, by explaining things I already know, things that are basic and self-explanatory. The interruptions are not only frustrating, but also patronizing, and I don't know how to make him stop. A typical example: in a recent meeting, another coworker was explaining a plan to take advantage of a quirk in the way our state categorizes UFO sightings. I've been working on UFO-related documentation for years, including developing our company's internal UFO tracking system. I know this subject inside and out. But in the middle of the discussion, Craig interjects with, "Hold on, let's make sure everyone's on the same page. Jane might be a little lost. Jane, do you know what UFO stands for?" At this point, I'm beyond annoyed, but I assure him, as usual, that I'm very familiar with the subject. Yet, despite my acknowledgement, he continues his patronizing lecture, giving a today's basic lesson on something that everyone, including me, already knows. Here's the kicker: Craig and I are both in senior roles in the company, each with our own areas of expertise. I have all the necessary degrees, certifications, and years of experience, whereas Craig has been at the company a bit longer. But he has a pattern of treating me as if I'm a complete novice, even though I've been here far longer than he has. This behavior has been ongoing for over 8 years, ever since I first started, and it's getting exhausting. I'm not the only one who's noticed. Craig has a history of being dismissive and condescending toward other female colleagues as well. I've come to suspect that his interruptions are part of a strategy to subtly undermine my credibility in front of the team. By repeatedly interrupting me with his helpful explanations, he's planting the idea that I lack basic understanding of our work. At the same time, he positions himself as the expert who is willing to simplify complex ideas into bite-sized pieces for the less experienced, aka me. The whole thing is frustrating and, frankly, a bit sad. I'm not sure how to address it without making a big deal out of it. The usual, "Yes, I know. Please let other coworker continue" responses have had no effect. Craig just brushes them off and carries on with his lesson. It feels like it would be ridiculous to escalate this to HR. I fear it would come across as if I'm complaining that Craig is simply trying to be helpful. And let's be real, he would likely spin it that way if I did. While I'd love to interrupt him in return with equally basic explanations just to see how he likes it, I'm looking for a more professional way to shut this down once and for all. Does anyone have advice on how to handle this without making it worse? Update. A few months ago, I wrote about my insufferable coworker, Craig, who constantly interrupted meetings to explain basic concepts to me. After reading your feedback and taking some time to reflect, I realized how blatantly obnoxious his behavior really was, and that I didn't have to just sit back and take it. The comments were extremely supportive, and several of them offered great comebacks, which I saved in a file on my phone for future use. Eventually, I decided to go to upper management about Craig's behavior. I'm not sure what happened behind closed doors, but after that conversation, the frequency of his interruptions dropped drastically. It was a huge relief. I never got to use most of the snappy replies I'd saved, but honestly, I was just happy it stopped. But then came the kicker. Months later, I received a call from a recruiter pushing a position I had zero interest in. As the recruiter kept insisting how prestigious this job was and how it would really elevate my resume, it suddenly clicked who would actually be flattered by such a pitch: Craig. So, I gave the recruiter Craig's contact information, and now, I'm happy to report that Craig is no longer at my company. I feel a little guilty for potentially sending him to his new coworkers, but at least he's out of my work life. And in case his new colleagues need it, I might just forward them a list of my best comebacks for dealing with Craig's helpful interruptions. Thanks again to everyone who gave me the perspective and encouragement to take action. Stories number 3. AITA for not letting my brother's girlfriend stay in my guest room after she made a scene at dinner. So, I, 30F, live in a nice 2-bedroom apartment in the city. One of my bedrooms is a guest room, and my family often uses it when they come to visit. I'm close with my brother, Alex, 27M, and he recently started dating a woman, Jenna, 26F. This weekend, Alex asked if he and Jenna could stay with me while they visited the city. I said yes, of course, because I wanted to meet her, and Alex has always been respectful of my home. Things started off fine, but at dinner on the first night, Jenna made things awkward. We were eating at a nice Italian restaurant, and while we were waiting for our food, Jenna started talking about how people who rent instead of owning homes are financially irresponsible. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was a joke, but she doubled down, saying it was basically throwing money away every month. I calmly told her that I rent because I value the flexibility it gives me, especially since my job might require me to relocate in the next few years. She then said, well, maybe if you stop spending so much money on eating out, you'd be able to afford a down payment. Alex looked mortified and told her to drop it, but she wouldn't. She went on to say that people like me are part of the reason the economy is so messed up because we don't prioritize homeownership. I snapped back and told her she was being rude and condescending and that my financial choices were none of her business. The rest of the dinner was tense, and when we got back to my apartment, I told Alex privately that I didn't feel comfortable having Jenna stay in my home anymore. He tried to apologize on her behalf, but I stood firm. I told him he was welcome to stay, but Jenna had to find another place. Jenna overheard and got upset, accusing me of being overly sensitive and dramatic. She said she didn't mean anything by her comments and that I was taking things too personally. Alex ended up leaving with her, and now he's upset with me, saying I overreacted and put him in an awkward position. I feel bad for making Alex choose, but at the same time, I feel like Jenna disrespected me in my own home and doubled down when called out. So, Reddit, AITA. Stories number 4. AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding after she demanded I change my wedding colors because they clash with her complexion. I, 28F, am getting married to the love of my life, 30M, in 6 months. We've been planning our dream wedding for over a year, and everything was going smoothly until recently. My older sister, Sarah, 32F, has always been particular. She's very into aesthetics and her personal image. She's also used to getting her way. When we were kids, she was always the golden child, and my parents rarely told her no. We're not super close, but we're on decent terms. I asked her to be a bridesmaid, and she accepted. I was happy to have her be a part of my special day. We decided on a color scheme of dusty rose and sage green for our wedding. I love these colors, and they fit perfectly with our outdoor, garden-themed venue. I sent out a mood board to the bridal party, including Sarah, to give them an idea of the overall vibe. A few days later, Sarah called me, practically in tears. She said the colors were horrendous and would completely wash her out. She has olive skin and dark hair, and apparently, these colors are her worst nightmare. She demanded I change the entire wedding color scheme to something that would complement her better, like jewel tones. I was shocked. I tried to explain that we had already put down deposits based on these colors, and it was way too late to change everything. I also reminded her that the wedding is about me and my fiancé, not her. She went ballistic, accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate, and said I was ruining her experience. She even threatened not to come if I didn't change the colors. After a few days of her relentless pressure and guilt-tripping, I finally snapped. I told her that if she was that unhappy with the colors, then maybe it was best if she didn't come at all. I uninvited her from the wedding and the bridal party. Now, my parents are furious. They're saying I'm overreacting and being a bridezilla. They're accusing me of ruining the family over something as trivial as wedding colors. Some of my extended family are also taking her side, saying I should be more accommodating. My fiancé supports my decision, but I'm starting to feel incredibly guilty. I'm also heartbroken that this is causing such a huge rift in my family. Maybe I should have tried harder to make my sister happy, even if it meant changing my vision. So, Reddit, AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding because she demanded I change my wedding colors to suit her complexion. Edit, holy crap, didn't expect this kind of response. Thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts and similar experiences. It's been a huge help. Still feeling good about my decision, but family drama is never fun. I also want to clarify, she's not wearing the dusty rose and sage green. The bridesmaids are all wearing different shades of jewel tones to complement the decor. She wanted me to change the decor. Stories number 5. Was gifted my Christmas gift early so that he could use it. Last year, the holiday season was buzzing online with conversations all around stockings for mom and how it's the dad's job to fill them. I'm thinking about that viral TikTok that went everywhere. I think that's a symptom of a larger societal problem about default parenting, uneven workloads, mental load, and emotional labor. Let's be real, in many families, the only reason Christmas magic exists is because of all the effort moms put in to make it happen. My husband did get me gifts. I'll give him that. Last night, I was prepping bottles and trying to get to bed while he was going to wash the dishes. He came up to me with a plastic Walmart bag and said, "I've decided to give you your Christmas present early since it can get a lot of use between now and Christmas." I thought that was a little weird, but hey, I like gifts, so I didn't think much about it. I take the bag and inside are various unwrapped boxes of scrub mommies/scrub daddies. All in all, I think it was about 10 plus individual scrubbers. He says, "I'll even let you pick out which one we should use first." The whole time he did the dishes he raved about how much better it was than the current scrubber we use, my personal favorite brand. I'm not seething mad or anything, but I just have to sit here and roll my eyes thinking about it. First, he got me household cleaning supplies for Christmas. I thought we all knew by now it was not cool to gift those unless they were explicitly asked for. But on top of that, he gave me my Christmas gift because he wanted to use it to wash the dishes that night. I think what bothers me the most is that I know he bought me a Kindle for Christmas, because I had to walk him through what to order, and he won't give me that early even though I would use it every day. But suddenly it's okay to give me gifts early so that he can use it? Well, I guess my stocking is still going to be empty since I already got my stocking stuffers. Stories number 6. AITA for asking why I was left off a family photo collage. My in-laws are celebrating their 30th anniversary. My wife and all her siblings decided to get a large framed photo collage for them as a present. The collage, of course, has their wedding pictures and pictures of my wife and her siblings as children. The collage also includes the most recent group photo of their whole family together at our wedding back in April. Additionally, the collage also has, separate, pictures of her 3 married brothers with their wives and children, and a picture of her recently engaged brother and his fiancée. However, there is no picture of me and my wife, nor do I appear in any of the group pictures, not even in the family pic from our wedding. I brought this to my wife's attention, and her immediate and annoyed-sounding response was, "It's not about you. It's about my parents and my family and the grandkids." I said, "I understand, and I'm not saying it's about me, but I'm wondering, if there's pictures of your married brothers with their wives, shouldn't there also be one of us?" Her response was, "It's not about my married brothers and their wives, it's to show off the grandkids." Okay. What about the pic of newly engaged brother and fiancé? There's no grandkids to show off there. At this point my wife gets upset. "You know, you're really annoying me right now. My siblings and I worked really hard to put this together, and now you have to make it ALLLL about you and the fact that you're not on it. Grow up. You'll be in other pictures in the future. Now truthfully, I don't really care that much about not being in the collage, but I am feeling very hurt and frustrated by my wife's response. AITA. Stories number 7. AITA for not buying a coffee maker for guests. Not the a-hole. Me and my husband do not drink coffee. So we do not have a coffee maker or any coffee beans. He has a friend who lives hours away and he sees him in person once every year or two. Usually when he comes up, he brings his girlfriend. They stayed over for a few days last year. Before they came, I asked if they wanted any food or drinks to have in the house and I told them what we normally kept stocked in the house. They didn't make any requests. The first morning the girlfriend wanted coffee. I told her we did not have any way to make coffee here, but I could bring her to the coffee shop which was 2 minutes away. She declined but her mood seemed sour after that. We hung out with other mutual friends for the day and I learned from one of them that she was really upset we didn't have a way to make coffee at home because she needs it in the morning. Each morning I offered to bring her to the coffee shop and she always declined. I even offered it as my treat in case they didn't have the money. She declined still. Well, they came over again a year later. I still didn't have a coffee maker because we don't drink coffee. This time, she called me a bad host to my face because I had them over knowing she needs her coffee and I didn't get anything to make coffee. I am a people pleaser. And I go huge lengths to make guests most comfortable. But I can't justify having a coffee maker we don't use for maybe a once-per-year guest. I don't have the storage space for it. I talked to people about it and some think I was right, we don't drink coffee, we don't have it. But a lot of others think that if you ever have guests, you should have coffee available. And this makes me think of my mom and grandma who always had coffee ready within minutes of guests arriving, expected or not. So this skews my view. AITA for not having a coffee maker and coffee beans when I knew a guest who needs coffee comes to stay at my house. ETA, I'm getting a lot of comments about how they're cheap. Yes, I know. I can afford one. But I don't have space to store something I won't use except maybe once per year. Yes, they're small. But I don't have space in my kitchen. Which is why I offered to bring her to get coffee somewhere. Stories number 8. Rant. One cannot purchase tampons or pads in the Istanbul airport inside of security. I'm at the Istanbul airport traveling from Abu Dhabi when my period surprised me a week early. This never happens to me. I'm an extremely prepared traveler. I have tampons that are in my checked bag, as I was concerned that on the extremely off chance my period surprised me I may not be able to find tampons in the UAE, reasoning, most Middle Eastern-owned bodegas in NYC only stock pads. I have one tampon on me for just such emergencies, but I've got an 11-hour flight back to the US, and I typically have a pretty heavy first for days. This bad boy won't last me more than 5 hours. Apparently there are 3 pharmacies outside of passport control at this massive airport, and I don't have time to walk back out of security to find said pharmacies. Nothing in the bathrooms either. I can buy Prada eyeshadow and get lunch at Salt Bay, but God forbid a lady needs a tampon. Fingers crossed a kind flight attendant has something she can share. Fingers crossed I don't bleed through these pants. Thanks for engaging in my sleep-deprived, jet-lagged, PMS ravings. Stories number 9. WIPTA for refusing to pay for my hair to be done for a friend's upcoming wedding. Not the a-hole PO mode. I, 27F, am a bridesmaid in my friend's upcoming wedding, less than a week away. This wedding is very small and a budget wedding, not judging, it's not my day, I'm just painting a picture. The bride has 6 bridesmaids, we have pretty much paid for everything ourselves. The bride has contributed $100 towards our dresses and paid for any alterations required, but we have paid the rest. Shoes, bag, jewelry etc. have all been funded by myself, and yes, there was a requirement for color/style. We are all doing our own makeup for the day, and up until recently I assumed our own hair too. The bride would like soft curls, which I am very capable of doing. I recently found out that the bride has booked us in for our hair to be done professionally on the day and that we are expected to pay for it. It's going to cost us each $150 for soft curls. Another bridesmaid who is currently unemployed contacted her about not getting her hair done and doing it herself, again very capable of doing soft curls, and did her own wedding hair, as she does not have $150 spare right now around Christmas time. The bride's response to this was that getting your hair done is non-negotiable. I am of the belief that if I am paying for it, it is absolutely negotiable. This has now caused a bit of tension right before the wedding because a few of us really don't want to pay the money and are a little peeved that it was booked and decided before asking us if we even wanted it. Also considering what we have already paid for this wedding. Bride is insisting and we are trying to negotiate ways around it beyond just flat out refusing, but it's not going great. A few people I have spoken to have been shocked that us bridesmaids have been made to pay for anything wedding related at all. And some others have said that I agreed to all of this when I agreed to be a bridesmaid, wasn't actually asked, but that's another story. I've never been in a bridal party so I don't actually know what's normal, I guess. So, Wibta if I refuse to pay for and get my hair done on the day. Update, I managed to find out the hairstylist and with a little investigative work I can confirm that this hairstylist does actually charge $150 per person for soft waves for bridal events, wedding tax as without the bridal aspect she only charges $70. I feel better knowing that I wasn't being scammed into paying for the bride's hair, however it makes even less sense why she wouldn't let us opt out of getting our hair done. I also have compared this cost with a few other salons and she is about $50 over the normal cost for soft waves. Still doesn't change the fact I don't want to pay. Stories number 10. 9-week-old baby fell off couch. So my baby daddy was holding the baby on the couch and he fell asleep, baby fell onto the floor and landed head first. I freaked out and said, we should take her to the hospital. He immediately got defensive and acted like I was overreacting and then went into the bedroom and went to sleep pouting because he thought I was yelling at him instead of realizing I was freaking out over our baby, so I took her to the ER without him and came home to him snoring. He didn't text or call to check on her while we were there. Am I the asshole for thinking that behavior is inexcusable and he should have manned up and set his feelings to the side to tend to his baby and make sure she was okay? All is fine BTW, baby is okay. Stories number 11. My illness is about men. Recently, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer with metastases in my liver. Over the course of the last week, I've been letting people know and the reactions are all over the place. One has really stuck out to me, though. I told a man that I had recently been on one date with. I just wanted to make sure he didn't take it personally that I wouldn't be dating for a little while. He didn't, but he did continue to push for more dates, explaining that he felt a strong connection to me and that, it's okay, this doesn't scare me off as a red flag or anything. I told him that I wasn't worried about it being a red flag, but that I simply couldn't focus on my dating life when I'm literally concerned about life versus death. He began to assure me that I would stay pretty, and he was interested still if I was. I know the numbers on men not taking women's struggles seriously, but sometimes it's so blatant that I want to pull my hair out, and it makes me see red. I blocked the guy, and have moved on, but man. Am I feeling bleak about the state of things? Stories number 12. AITA for stealing a present from a child. Not the a-hole. Last week was my office holiday party with a white elephant gift exchange. The party invite was for employees and their significant others, so children were not specifically discouraged, but through conversations in the office it was clear that people were not bringing kids. One of my coworkers ended up bringing his 10-year-old daughter to the party. She is a regular around the office and he often brings her to work events, but at this party she was the only child. White Elephant is a game where everyone brings a wrapped gift and the first person chooses a present. The next person can either choose a new gift to open or steal a present that someone else has opened. If your gift is stolen you can choose a new present or steal. During the gift exchange, which was light-hearted and had a mix of real/silly gifts, someone opened a small hand-carved and painted wooden dragon. My husband has played D&D his whole life, loves dragons, and this was right up his alley. We had both already taken our turns, but agreed that if either of our gifts were stolen we would go straight for that. Along comes the kid's turn. There were other kid-friendly gifts available, but she decided to steal the dragon. Several rounds went by and we debated whether it would be alright to steal the dragon if the opportunity came up. It would be fine according to the rules of the game, but since the kid had it would that make it wrong? We ended up undecided, but leaning toward that it was all a game especially since the kid had stolen the item from someone else. Eventually my husband's gift was stolen so he had the chance to pick a new gift or steal. He made a joke about being the Grinch, and chose the dragon. The kid seemed disappointed, but picked another gift and the game went on. She ended up with a remote control Harry Potter wand that was actually pretty cool. After the exchange was over, she asked my husband if he would trade items. He said kindly but firmly that he was happy with his item and wanted to keep it. Later, I went to the bathroom and found her crying. I told my husband and we went to her father offering to give her the dragon since we didn't realize she was so upset. He said that it was a good lesson for her and she had actually talked enthusiastically about stealing gifts from people before the whole thing started. My husband has the dragon and is happy with it, but it is now a little tainted by guilt. The office seems to be split on the issue. Many people said that he should never have even considered stealing the item from her because she's a kid and might not have fully understood the game. We don't have children so may be out of touch on this issue, but the more I think about it the more I feel like she shouldn't really have been at the party in the first place, and her father shouldn't have allowed her to participate in the game if she couldn't understand the possibility of an item getting stolen. So I genuinely want to know, are we the assholes? Stories number 13. Boomer gets upset at the post office because a woman declined his request to let him go ahead of her. I was standing in line at the post office with 2 large black bags filled with 7 boxes to be mailed. It was a long line of about 7 people ahead of me. An older, white man came in behind me with just 1 box. The line was moving pretty good and I was up to like about the 4th from the front. The man got on his phone and he says loudly, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a little late. The line's pretty long but I'll get it mailed and be right there." Then after he hung up he says, "You sure have a lot of packages." I didn't respond to him. Then he says, "Could I go in front of you, because I only have this one?" I looked at him and said, "No." He goes, "That's not very nice." I said I'm not trying to be nice. He then snarkily says, "Merry Christmas to you, too." I said Merry Christmas. And he then said, "God bless you." I turned and said, "Thank you for virtue signaling your moral superiority by having your God bless me." He responded, "Well, have your God bless you, if you even believe in one." I turned again and said, "If I can't say no, then your request was actually a demand. My time is as valuable as yours and I declined your request. I don't accept demands." He looked confused and said, "What?" So I said slowly, "If I can't say no, then your request was actually a demand. My time is as valuable as yours and I declined your request. I don't accept demands." I then added, "Since I said no, you've been throwing a passive-aggressive tantrum just because you didn't get your way." I turned back around. This time he was silent. I stood there, a little uncomfortable because I wasn't nice, but I don't have to be. Women have always been trained to be nice, especially to men, and then assigned blame when they get angry at us. I am not subservient to any man. I am tired of men, especially old, white men, thinking they are more important than anyone else, that they are entitled to special rules and courtesies bordering on deference. I knocked the patriarchy upside the head a bit by not acquiescing to his demand, disguised as a request. I only wish his wife could have seen the look on his face. Patriarchy is the polluted air we breathe. No more for me. Edited for clarity, this did not happen to me, I ran across this in a women's Facebook group and felt it was appropriate for this sub. Stories number 14. Dad found my pocket P4SSY literally 10 minutes ago. I'm 19, I sleep through the days and work at night so I decided to have a little stress relief in the bath after work. Eve never once ever been caught with anything remotely sexual cause I'm usually careful or at a different house. But dumbass me left it on the edge of the bath while I was getting dressed and left it sat there for hours until 8:20 and I hear my dad say, "My name, what the fuck is this?" I could tell he found it funny so I don't feel embarrassed, just ashamed. I'm disappointed in myself for being so stupid, it feels horrible. I'm just glad it was him and not one of my siblings, yikes. Edit, yes, pocket pussies are weird. No, I'm not an incel, just in a dry spell because of work hours. Yes, I'm 100% burning it and burying it 30 feet deep, never again. Second edit, turns out he didn't find it funny, it was nervous laughter. Now he won't even look me in the eye and avoids talking to me, great. Plus people keep saying, in the family bath, gross, 99% of it if not all of it stays in it too. I always clean the bath with the shower and soap after use even when I don't use the toy, it was a habit long before I had it. Stories number 15. AITA for allowing my son to disinvite his stepmother from his bar mitzvah. My ex and I have been divorced for 7 years. We have 3 children, Amy, 17, Tom, 16 and Ben, 14. Our divorce was amicable and we co-parent well for the most part. I am a non-observant Jew and my ex is a non-practicing Catholic. We decided to teach our children to be decent people and allow them to decide what faith, if any, they wanted when we're old enough. My ex remarried 2 years ago and they have a 6-month-old daughter. She is a devout Christian, non-denominational. Since she came into their lives, she has actively tried to convert them. I wouldn't have an issue if she was just inviting them to church, but she is constantly telling them that if they do not accept Christ as their Savior, they will go to hell, as will me and my family. After this, my children refused to see their dad, unless it was outside of his home, without her. Their dad finally put his foot down and put an end to it. Now, on to the problem. My parents went to Poland a few months ago to visit family and took my children with them. While there, my dad took them to Auschwitz and Ben was very moved. When he came home he started attending temple with my father and has been working with his rabbi to prepare for his bar mitzvah. He is having a small party afterwards at my parents' house. When his stepmother heard this, she really ramped up the crazy. She waited until my ex was not home and invited a bunch of people from her church over and they ambushed Ben. They tried to lay hands on him to save him from the fires. My daughter physically intervened, called an Uber and took her brothers home. My ex stopped by a couple of hours later and apologized profusely for what had happened. My son accepted his apology, but stated that his stepmother was no longer welcome at his bar mitzvah or the party afterwards. My ex got very upset by this and stated that this was being disrespectful and he could not go somewhere where his wife was not welcome. My son said, "Well, I guess you're not invited either, then." He then locked himself in his room. My ex, his parents, and his wife have all been texting and calling berating me. When my parents found out what had happened, they stated that his wife was not welcome in their home, but they told my son that he should still allow his father to come. My ex is adamant that he will not come without his wife and my son is adamant that his wife is not invited. I refuse to intervene on his wife's behalf and my ex says I am an asshole. Am I? Just a few things for clarification. I'm trying to respond to all comments, but there's getting to be too many, so thank you everyone for your input. I plan on showing this to my ex. No, she wasn't like this when he married her. She went to church, but it wasn't until they got married that she became more involved. I was actually surprised that she was with him, knowing that he was not religious but figured opposites attract. In the beginning, she was great with our kids. They liked her and spent a lot of time with them. Her pushing my kids towards Christianity was little things like insisting they bow their heads for grace at meal times, buying them books by religious authors, not allowing what she deemed inappropriate movies, Harry Potter. Anything with profanity, hanging up religious pictures, and signs with Bible verses in the house, etc. Once she started with the, "You're going to hell if you don't" nonsense, I got their dad involved and it ended. At least for a while. Their dad is very supportive of our sons embracing Judaism. He is paying for private Hebrew lessons and has offered to send him to Israel the summer after high school, providing it is safe to go. My ex and I met our freshman year of college. We were together a few years before getting married, and only got married because our first was on the way, and both of our sets of parents were very insistent that we do so. My parents, especially, were very big on the legal aspect of it for my protection. We separated after almost 20 years of being together, because we had started to become unhappy together, and, despite counseling, could not resolve some of our differences. There was no infidelity or anything like that. We only got divorced when he met his current wife so that they could marry. We had no formal custody agreement in place. My parents have me seeing a lawyer next week to put some parameters into place and protect everyone involved. He promised that the kids don't have to be around his wife until they are ready to be. I asked then, why is it a big deal that he doesn't want her at the ceremony and party? His response is that he wants the invitation extended, but he will make sure that she won't go. He says it's disrespectful and a snub to not invite her. I told him that that sounded like a big bunch of BS and that she was not going to be no matter what. Edited for punctuation and spelling. Update: Sunday, my ex asked if I would be willing to come over and discuss what happened. He said he felt there were some misunderstandings that needed to be resolved. I went, along with my daughter and oldest son. They asked to go. Anyway, when I got there was another couple there who I was introduced to as her pastor and his wife. I was immediately on guard. Stepmother stated that all she and her church group had wanted to do was pray for my children. She stated that she felt that raising them with no religion had done them a great disservice, and that I didn't understand all of the consequences of doing this. She stated that, since she had had her daughter, she realized how horrible it would be to be separated in heaven from the people she loved more than anything in the world. I said I did not believe that would happen, as I believed if there was any type of afterlife, one of the perks would be that you would be reunited with people that you loved. She then stated that it would have to be this way as my children had not accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Then she started to cry. I gently suggested to her that she was still postpartum, and that it was possible that her hormones and emotions were heightened, and that she was not seeing things clearly. That was obviously the wrong thing to say because then she and my ex both became angry with me and told me that I was trying to make her out to be a crazy person. Her pastor quoted a few Bible verses and attempted to expand on what she had said. The whole time my ex just sat there silently. I finally asked him what he thought about all of this, and he said that his wife meant well and that she was only concerned with our kids' souls. I asked him when he had become so religious as during our 20 years together, he had not so much stepped inside of a church outside of a few weddings we'd attended. He stated that their having their daughter had made him realize how important choosing a faith was. I told him that our son had chosen, it just happened to be Judaism instead of Christianity. I also said it was my understanding that it was the same God for both. The pastor then again chimed in stating that Jesus was the true Messiah, and that Jews would be punished both in this life and the afterlife for denying that. At that point, my daughter stood up and stated that this whole discussion was making her sick. My older son said that he was tired of dealing with all of his stepmother's bullshit, and he would never step foot into their home again. He said over the years, he had ignored a lot as both myself and his dad had encouraged him to be tolerant of people's beliefs, but as nobody was being tolerant of his or his siblings' beliefs, he was done dealing with their hypocrisy. He told his dad that he had no desire to either talk or see him or his wife for the foreseeable future. We then left. Today, I met with the family lawyer that my parents had found for me. He said that tomorrow we are going to go to the courthouse for a temporary restraining order and to ask for an emergency custody order. He says we'll get both. He also had me go to the police department today and make a report with all 3 of my children about what happened last week. I am so sick that it has come to this. I never wanted my children to have to be put in the middle of battling families. I am aware, as so many of you pointed out, that I underreacted. To be honest, this is the first time in my life I have really ever dealt with anything like this. I grew up in an incredibly diverse community, where everyone was tolerant of everyone else, and, when my ex and I were married, we returned and lived in that community, as we felt it was a fantastic place to raise children. So, that's that. I want to thank everyone for all of their support and for those who pointed out that I was being naive for being kind about it. I'm sorry, I could not respond to everyone personally, including all of the private messages I was sent. There were just so many. Never expected this to blow up so hard. Update. AITA for not allowing my kids to see their grandparents for Christmas break. Hello, everyone. I posted on here a couple of months ago after my ex's wife staged a religious intervention when my son decided he wanted to embrace Judaism and be bar mitzvahed. Post is still under my profile if anyone wants specifics. My ex and I share 3 children, Amy 18, Tom 16 and Ben 15. The people responding to that first post helped me to see that I was underreacting, and I met with a lawyer for a custody order as we had just done our own thing. I now have full decision-making for our children's religious upbringing and full custody. X has visitation every other weekend. I have been incredibly flexible and let him take them pretty much whenever he or the kids want. On his weekend I stay with my parents and he stays in the house. Only rule I made was the stepmother is not around them at all. Ever. My kids are very close with their paternal grandparents. GPs know that stepmother is not to be around them, but twice when I picked them up she was there. Excuse was that she had just popped in quickly to drop off the baby. I asked them to let me know when they were sitting and we would plan a different day, but they said that it was a last-minute thing. Okay, fine. They want them to come for a 5-day visit over Christmas break, not 24-25, and I cannot trust that this woman will not come over. Ben still gets incredibly anxious with her. Yes, he is in therapy. My in-laws refuse to tell her that she cannot come over because they say they do not want to be put in the middle and that it's making them choose between their grands. I reached out to my ex who said that since she isn't coming over for long he's not stopping it. He also said that there is nothing in the order that she can't be around, and as his wife and mom of their sibling there's no reason that she should have to tiptoe around. He was incredibly dismissive, and I went nuclear on him. I told him that I have been letting him see them whenever despite only having 2 weekends a month, that he was married to a sociopathic zealot, and that if she continued to come around I would go back to court and ask for supervised visits and a restraining order against her. He hung up. Then I asked the kids what they wanted. Come to find out the woman has been coming around a lot. Amy said their grandparents asked them not to say anything to not upset me. I told my daughter that as an adult she can go but that her brothers would not be. Ben's look of relief broke my heart. Amy said and she felt weird when Step showed up. Tom said he's with Ben. Called XMIL, told her that the children not be coming back until they chose to. I said they were welcome to come over to see them. I said they were so wrong to ask the kids to keep secrets. They called my ex who berated me for punishing his parents. Stepmom sent me a text saying I was unfair. I think I'm right, but everyone else thinks I'm TA. Am I? Stories number 16. AITA for not wanting another child with my wife. Advice needed. I, 34M, have been telling my wife for years I did not want more children. We have an 8-year-old boy who is autistic and requires extra attention and a 4-year-old girl whose personality makes her a handful. After the birth of our son and finding out he was autistic, I decided more kids probably wouldn't be in our future. He was nonverbal basically until the end of kindergarten, and again just requires extra attention if we want any hope of him being able to have any sort of life after my wife and I are gone. I was already pressured into giving her our daughter. We fought and fought about it and I ultimately caved in. For a while after our daughter was born, I resented her though. That passed in a few weeks, and I let my love for her show finally. Now 4 years later I'm in the same scenario. My wife wants another child, but I do not. Kids are exhausting, expensive and require a level of attention I sometimes struggle with. Not only that, I feel we are not financially stable. We live with my in-laws, so granted we aren't very hard off, we just don't have any hope of ever getting a place of our own as we live in probably the most expensive state in the US. My 80K/year here doesn't do much. On top of that, she refuses to think of a life away from her mom and flat out denies any sort of idea that requires us moving and starting our own life. She says she doesn't want to be away from her mom because she won't live forever. Keep in mind I am 1,600 miles away from my closest family member, and I go years without seeing them, and that breaks my heart. Stories number 17. How to deal with aggressive Merry Christmas. Mega boomers. I had to experience one of those perfect boomer meltdowns just now, and yet found a way to shut him the hell up and leave him sputtering in confusion. It worked so very well, I thought I would share. I'm currently in New York City for the holidays, you know, that vibrant cultural melting pot of a city, where all sorts of cultures meet and mingle, and yet this total ass of a boomer in the line in front of me wasn't having any of it. The young girl ringing up his bagel says, "Thank you, happy holidays." And he just lost it. Raising his voice, he practically shouted at her, "Don't you mean, Merry Christmas? This is America, God damn it." So then he turns to me, and gives me the smirk to see whether I was gonna back him up on this very important principle, because I too am an older white guy, and I was wearing my Carhartts, because they are warm, so I think he assumed I was on his team. "The holiday is Christmas," he growls. "We don't have to put up with this woke bullshit anymore." I put on my blandest, most neutral expression. "Oh, you don't celebrate New Year's too?" He kinda short-circuited or something, and stood there blinking for a moment before grabbing his stuff and walking out, without saying another word. I turned to look at the clerk, and we both broke out laughing. It was a Jewish delicatessen and everything, just to add the perfect cherry on top. Anyways, try it yourself if you get the opportunity. It was awesome to watch him glitch out. Stories number 18. My stepsister, 20F, texted me, 21M, last night asking why we aren't close anymore, and I said it's because how bad we treated each other growing up. Should I feel bad for not wanting to be close with her? My mom died when I was 6, and my dad remarried when I was 9, the women he married had a daughter 1 year younger than me, so she was 8. At first I loved having a new mom. She wasn't the best and will never replace my real mom, but I appreciate her trying to be there for me, and I am pretty close with her and my dad. At first I loved having a sister, and we got along great. I loved having a playmate during vacations and always having a play or two. The problems really started to amp up when I was 13 and she was 12. It seemed like no matter what I did went unpunished in her eyes, and she had to mock me constantly. Being a hot-headed 13-year-old usually meant I'd retaliate, and we would have those long screaming matches till either of our parents told us to knock it off or they would send up to different parts of the house to cool off. I also started playing football in high school, and my problem was that I was constantly getting injured. In 8 years, 11 to 18, I broke my arm, pinky, wrist, got 2 concussions, tore my ACL, sprained my MCL and dislocated my shoulder. On top of all that, I was kinda chubby. I don't wanna say I was fat. I was about 180 to 210 from the ages of 14 to 18 at 6 feet 2 inches. She used to make fun of me for my injuries and my weight, which were very touchy subjects for me. Her favorite insult was, "You fat cripple loser," or, "Maybe if you lost some weight you wouldn't get injured so often." Back then those insults really pissed me off, but I kept trying to be the older brother, and just told her to shut up, fight back or storm off. She also loved to embarrass me when friends were over by bringing up dumb stuff I did when I was like 9 or 10. My friends are great people, but we tease each other a lot and would usually remember anything embarrassing we did and bring it up later. So whatever she said to them would always get back. I did talk with her if she could just shut up when I have my friends over, and she basically told me to F off and that it's her house too. At this point in my life, 16 years old, I am super pissed at how shitty she has treated me over the years. I know I caused some if and usually fought back when she got snippy and bratty at me, but to me she started more fights than I did. I did try to talk to my dad and stepmom about the way me and her treat each other, and they basically said it's normal sibling rivalry. Her antics got a lot worse and her words got more and more mean-filled and vile, which meant I would retaliate with just as mean and vile-filled insults. I will not sit here and say I wasn't just as mean to her as she was to me. I used to bully her relentlessly for these hair buns she would wear from 13 to 14, if you want a picture just look up the buns Leia wore from Star Wars. I also told her plenty of times that I hate her and don't consider her family. I have apologized so much for those two cause I do feel bad, even though she hasn't apologized I know she feels bad too. I bet there were some other moments but they didn't happen to me so I probably forgot them. I moved out when I was 18 without ever sending her a text message goodbye or even telling her I was moving out. The past 5 years of unpleasantness between us made me happy that I didn't have to see her. A year later she moves out and I still resented her for how we treated each other. We go almost 2 years without speaking other than on holidays, and that's really only dry stuff, nothing big. I am now 21 and she's 20 and I got a text the other night asking why we aren't close like we were when we were kids. I basically said I don't care to get along with you or get close because of how we treated each other as kids. She told me to grow up, and not even an hour later I get a call from my dad asking why I have so much hate for my sister years since we have lived together. I told him I'll be cordial and won't cut her out of my life, but I don't need or want to be close with her. How do I go about telling her that I don't want us to be close yet, until we both want to be close? But leaving the door open for her not to resent me, and we can still love each other. TLDR, me and my sister treated each other terribly growing up and now I don't really care to be close with her. Edit, I would like to point out that I was just as mean to my stepsister. I don't have examples cause it's been 5 years and didn't stick with me like hers did, but our fighting growing up did go both ways. Edit 2, some people have said that I shouldn't cut her out of my life, and I agree with that. I love her and want to be there for her, but I don't like her enough to be close with her. Edit 3, I added more to the story of how I was shitty to her too. Update September 30th, 2019. After our text convo that led to my dad calling me asking what's wrong between us, I texted her about a meetup at my place. This was the first time we actually met/hung out outside of a family gathering. Before she came over, that realization gave me a new look on our relationship. The whole sit down went well, we actually got along and there wasn't any name calling or anything mean. We talked about how we treated each other, and this was the first time I've ever heard her apologize for how she treated me growing up, and I did the same. We talked about how the text convo went, and I came to the conclusion that I still had the old image of how she was when I last saw her at 17 and was using that to picture her now. She still kinda acts the same, kinda moody, but can hold it in so much better now, but it's a lot better. We talked it out and spent about half the day together just hanging out, and I will admit I enjoyed it. I don't think we will be super duper close, but it's a step in the right direction and there isn't a wall of tension between us anymore. Thank you all for the advice and comments, it really came in handy and I appreciate it. TLDR, me and my sister talked it out and it went pretty well. Stories number 19. AITA for telling my MIL she's the reason my marriage failed. My MIL and I have never gotten along. She's always had an opinion on everything I do and never hid her disapproval of my marriage. My ex-husband and I divorced a few months ago, and during our final conversation, he confessed that he'd always had doubts about our relationship because of her constant interference. She would tell him I wasn't good enough for him, that I would never live up to her expectations. At our last family gathering, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled my MIL aside and told her straight up that she was the main reason for our divorce. I was blunt. I told her that her constant criticism and disrespect towards me had undermined our relationship for years. She was shocked and stormed off in tears. My family then turned on me, yelling that I was cruel and had ruined the gathering. Stories number 20. I'd actually love to have more non-monogamous sex, but these guys are so weird out here. Casual sex isn't the issue. The issue is so many men who feel the need to manipulate you for it. They feel the need to make you think they actually like you, when really if they were people with integrity, honesty, and communication, the emotional blow-ups we see happening would not happen that way. I honestly would love to actually have more non-monogamous sexual relations because I want to get comfortable having and enjoying sex. I don't really feel comfortable with having sex, but I feel like if I had more partners that were respectful, honest, and communicative, I could have these types of relations and that would be quite nice. But instead, for some reason it's like many men cannot do this. It's as though they feel they need to manipulate the woman then treat her as callously and dismissively as possible. What's that about? I also think this is somehow related to why men shame and are almost afraid of or intimidated by women who have complete sexual agency. It's almost as though when women only want sex and nothing else, they seem to take it personally. It's almost like this deeply embedded psychology of a need to control. Stories number 21. AITA for telling my mom's boyfriend his kids will never be family. Not the a-hole. Roughly more than a year ago my mother introduced me to her boyfriend. Since then me and my 3 siblings have been introduced to his 3 kids and our families have been merged. Though we still live in separate homes, his family is over our house all the time, but it's very obvious he is purposely leaving me and my other older sibling out of the family plans. Last year during Thanksgiving, I was informed 3 days before that all of his kids, including his adult child, and my 2 younger siblings along with my mother were going to meet our grandparents 6 states over. Me and my older sibling were whiplashed as we didn't have enough time to pull together funds or time off to join them. We brought this up to our mom and she simply said she guesses we can join them next time and she thought we knew. That left me and my sibling alone for a week during Thanksgiving, in which we each just ended up going to a family member's house who we don't see often. We were both very hurt by this incident, and brought to each other's attention how many family trips they have had, whether it's a weekend thing or not, without inviting us or telling us until the day of. We've kept our mouths shut until now, but since Christmas is coming around, we were getting nervous they were going to do the same thing. Thankfully they didn't, but we were told to be sure to get his kids gifts as they are now our siblings. Having to get gifts for 3 people who we aren't even close to really sucked, but my sibling and I begrudgingly did so. I don't remember how it got brought up today, but I found out his kids weren't getting any of my siblings' gifts, not even the adult despite them all having jobs. This really pissed me off and I ended up lashing out on both of them, specifically my mother's boyfriend. I told him that I don't care about him or his kids, but if he wants to play family he's not playing the father act well at all. He retorted with he doesn't need to share his life with adult kids and to him we're just our mom's past. I'll admit I got nasty after this, telling him his kids are baggage enough and my mother doesn't need any more kids, and I'll never look at his spoiled rotten brats as family. This seemed to really hurt my mom and she started crying. Her boyfriend screamed at me to leave so I did. I'm staying at a friend's right now but I'm wondering if I went too far. I don't give a fuck if I was the asshole to the boyfriend, I already know that part. But was I an asshole to my mom in this way too? I just don't want her to forget that she has 2 kids who still see her as their mother and she can't just forget they exist because her boyfriend won't acknowledge us. Edit, I am 20 and the older sibling is 17, I only said older because they are older than my 2 younger siblings who are under the ages of 10. I pay half the rent and half the household expenses in the house with my mother and without me we wouldn't be housed. I think everyone knows how expensive it is to live on your own right now, let alone with 3 kids excluding myself. I will be going back home and understand he can't kick me out of a place my name's on the lease on, but I am trying to cool myself down. Did this update to clear some things up for people. Update, I came home pretty early this morning to have a talk with her mom when her boyfriend left. I took a lot of your advice and told her how leaving me and my sibling out is not blending the family in any manner, and how I feel like my own home is being invaded despite my contributing significantly. According to my mom her boyfriend didn't end up spending the night due to them having their own fight. My mother made it very clear that she was pretty ignorant to everything we felt, whether it was on purpose or not, but she started crying last night not only from what I said, but everything her boyfriend had said as well. A big part of their talk after I left was discussing me and my sibling. She didn't tell me everything they said but they will be taking time away from each other for a little while as my mom agreed that at some point he can't just leave me and my siblings out. But she also feels I was rejecting him and his kids early on along with my siblings, and it's why she didn't invite us to a lot of things because she didn't want to put us in uncomfortable situations. This led to me bringing up the fact that I pay half the rent and I would prefer from now on they go over his house in the future, and how I need to see respect from him and his kids and not treat me like a ghost in a house I contribute towards. She understood and said that she herself won't be seeing him for a while. This then ended with her sobbing again that at some point I will be getting married and the kids need a father. Our dad died roughly 6 years ago due to terminal illness. At this point my parents were already separated, but since then my mom has really only had flings, nothing serious. And the older I get the more she fears I'll leave her in the dust and she will have no one to help her with my siblings or the future. I know a lot of people said this, but I thought maybe you guys were just assuming, but I guess she was feeling like she needed to secure herself. Similarly, his kid's mom has been dead a little less than 4 years for a similar reason, though I don't know all the details. My mother said multiple times that she can't expect me to live with her forever and take care of her at the drop of the dime, and how she has been wanting a full-time companion for a long time for stability but also for companionship. By this point she had to leave for work and we decided to put a pin in the conversation. I don't think I'll be updating much further than this. I thank everyone for the advice and the consideration they gave to my post. I still feel like an AH, but I do feel a little less shitty setting the boundaries I did, considering over half of you said I should have done it sooner. Thank you, I appreciate it. Stories number 22. AITA for not giving up my aisle seat on a 15-hour flight for an older lady with mobility issues. We were on a 777, and the economy seating configuration was 343. I was seated in the aisle seat of the bulkhead row in the middle section. Next to me was an older lady, probably in her 60s. When I first sat down, she apologized and said she needed to get up. I told her it was no problem since there was enough space for her to move without me needing to stand up. A couple of minutes later, she returned with a flight attendant and asked if I could swap seats with her because she had mobility issues. I politely declined because I wanted to keep my aisle seat, and the seat next to her was occupied by a very large woman who was spilling into part of the older lady's seat. My thinking was that if the older woman truly had mobility issues, she likely would have been pre-assigned an aisle seat. Also, there really was plenty of room for her to get out of her seat without me having to move, so it seemed to me that she just didn't want to sit next to the larger passenger. AITA for refusing to swap. Edit. The flight attendant offered her an aisle seat after I declined to move, but she wanted the extra leg room in the bulkhead row and refused the alternative aisle seat offer, so that to me also seems like she just didn't want to be seated next to the larger lady. Stories number 23. My psychiatrist offered me cocaine when he didn't recognize me as his patient. Alright, I need to know, do you think this is morally acceptable? I am in my 20s and have struggled with depression and ADHD for a super long time. I finally agreed to see a psychiatrist that my parents recommended. He charges us like a ton of money because he did not accept our insurance. Anyways, I saw him in person for about 4 to 5 times. I was out at an event in our town, where there was a band playing and everyone was dancing. I was drinking beers with my friend when we saw him. Fuck. That's like my therapist or whatever, I say to my friend. Oh well, who cares? She says and goes off in front of me to dance. Suddenly one of his friends is dancing with my friend and he appears closer with some other guys. How do I know you? The psych turns to ask me as we watch my friend start getting low, are you guys the girls from that party last night? Yeah. I say half-assed and joking and I go along with this. My friend returns with the guy. Dude, they were at the party last night. Keegan's crazy, isn't he? Do you guys want to do some blow? He pulls out a baggie of coke before we can even confirm. My friend is drunk and wants to do it, and so we go near these restrooms about a couple steps to the right of us. While my friend is doing the coke, he looks at me and asks me if I want some. I say, no, I'm good. I don't do coke, it makes me depressed and shit. Hoping this would trigger his memory. He grabs the bag from my friend's hand and sticks his car key inside and pulls it to his nose. He takes a huge sniff and says, you know, I'm a psych, you could talk to me about that. I nearly died inside. This is the first person I ever spoke about my mental health with. This guy told me that my ex-boyfriend was a sex addict while he's out here doing lines with girls that look pretty young and are drunk. I don't know. I know everyone's a person and like fuck we all like a party. But like, is this fucked? Or is this just like damn you had a psych who does sniff? Stories number 24. AITA for shutting my sister out of my family's lives and declining her wedding invitation. 5 years ago, my niece Nikki and her friends ridiculed and harassed my son Mark. They speculated about his sexuality, called him slurs, and even used the N-word with a hard R, all for their entertainment. When Mark came home, he was crying, shaking, and yelling as he tried to tell me what happened. It was heartbreaking. I immediately approached my sister to address the issue. I explained Mark's side of the story in the state he was in, but she dismissed it, claiming her daughter and her friends would never act that way. She didn't even offer to talk to Nikki. This wasn't an isolated incident. A few months before, Nikki kicked Mark in the genitals in front of her friends as a joke. When I demanded an explanation and an apology, Nikki refused, started crying, and claimed it was unfair to hold her accountable, even as Mark was still in pain. Nikki also has a history of mean-spirited behavior, such as calling my younger son Corey, then 6 years old, the annoying child, instead of his name. Corey has asked me why she does this and shared how much it upsets him. In the case of Mark, my sister doubled down, claiming that one of Nikki's friends, the one who used the N-word, couldn't possibly be racist because she's Mexican. Her exact words were, "I don't know what you want me to do about this." That was the final straw for me. I told her that if she wasn't willing to address the issue, it was in my family's best interest to distance ourselves. 3 days later, she called me, said she spoke to Nikki, and told me, "We're good on my end." No details, no resolution, just that. When I followed up via email asking what was discussed and what actions would be taken, she never responded. To this day, no apology has been offered, not from my sister, Nikki, or the other kids involved. I informed my extended family about the situation and my decision to keep my kids away from my sister's family. While some were supportive, others, including my mother, have tried to undermine this boundary. One time, my mom secretly took my kids to spend time with my sister's family without my permission. I only found out because my younger son mentioned it. I was furious and drove an hour to pick them up immediately. Fast forward to today, I've received criticism for maintaining this boundary. My sister is now getting married and invited us to the wedding, but I declined. My mother even asked if she could take my kids to the wedding, and I flatly said no. There has been no effort from my sister to apologize or reconcile. The only time she reached out after the incident was to add me to a group chat asking if we could take her to a birthday party in Chicago, no mention of the harm she caused. I'm standing firm in my decision to protect my kids, but I've been labeled as overly harsh and unforgiving. AITA. Update, same post December 11, 2024, next day. I'd like to start by reminding everyone that I am a mom. My time on Reddit is limited. I can pop in for a quick one-line response in the morning, but once my kids are awake, I'm fully in mom mode until they're asleep again. This is why my posts and updates tend to happen late at night. For those claiming this post is fake, think what you want. I'm not wasting my energy convincing you otherwise. My daily life is already exhausting, especially with the added family pressure I'm dealing with. To provide some context, this situation started 5 years ago. My relationship with my mother wasn't great to begin with. After she secretly took my kids to spend time with my sister, I distanced my family from her too. About a week later, my mom reached out to apologize and took steps towards reconciliation. A few months after that, I started allowing her back into our lives, but I set firm boundaries. For instance, she's not allowed to take my kids anywhere without me. For the next year, I avoided large family gatherings to steer clear of my sister. However, 3 years after the incident, we attended a funeral where my sister and her family were present. My youngest, who was only 2 at the time of the original events, didn't even remember them. Today, he's curious and might want to get to know them, but Mark has no interest. He'll smile politely in shared spaces, but that's it. Corey remembers hearing "the annoying child" but doesn't realize it was directed at him. Over the years, we've had minimal interaction with my sister's family during shared events, mostly just nods of acknowledgement. Still, no apologies or meaningful attempts to reconcile have ever come from my sister. This year, the pressure from extended family has been relentless, with my brother being the most vocal. He insists I need to squash my feud because family events aren't the same. After last night, I realized getting everyone in a room to address this was impossible, so I sent a message in our family group chat. I explained that while some may not fully grasp the impact of what happened, it was deeply hurtful and damaging to my family. I also asked them to focus on this special time for my sister while respecting my boundaries and leaving my family out of it. I made it clear that if anyone couldn't respect my boundaries, I would have no choice but to distance myself from them as well. This prompted some quick responses like, "I'm sorry if I ever made you feel that way," and "I wasn't trying to pressure you." It's been 5 years of uncomfortable moments, family jabs, and constant pressure for the sake of keeping the peace. It's been draining, but I want to sincerely thank this community for the advice and support you've given me over the last 24 hours. The renewed energy to stand firm in my decision has meant more than I can express. Before signing off for the night, I'd like to mention that yes, I use AI to help structure my posts and trim unnecessary emotional content. Editor's note, because I know it will come up due to the last part of OOP's post. OOP's account is over 4 years old and she has commented about her kids over the years along with her strained relationship with her mom. She also posts/comments on multiple subs and uses Reddit fairly actively. All of that to say, her story lines up with what she has posted over the years. Stories number 25. AITA for not dropping out of a house party despite it making my ex's new fiancé uncomfortable. My ex, 27M, and I, 26F, split 2 years ago. We met through my best friend, who worked in the same theater as him then, and the reason we broke up was because he didn't think we were working anymore. It was pretty amicable, I didn't put up a fight or anything, but I strongly believed there was no reason for us to be friends anymore. That always causes problems, but I'm still friendly with his friends, and I make small chat if I run into his parents. We live a pretty close-knit environment. Don't ask me how, we live in a city, but most of my friends and his come from either the same uni or have a common hobby, or we roam around the same circles and we definitely see each other once or twice a couple of months. My ex has a fiancé now, and I am happy for them. I have never met her, until now I thought this didn't matter or anything. We are all adults, or so I think. One of his closest friends, Peter, just bought a house. I am friends with his girlfriend. And we are both invited to the housewarming. I didn't think any of it, however. My ex texted me yesterday, after like a year. Albeit, very politely, that maybe I could skip the housewarming, as he was bringing his fiancée, and she will feel uncomfortable. I was pretty weirded out by his wording, so I called him. He said, his fiancée feels uncomfortable that I would be anywhere close to him, and the fact that they both feel like I sometimes intrude into their social gatherings, just to prove I'm better than her to his friends. I got pretty mad hearing him say these things and I asked him in what way. We are not friends, and I stopped hanging out with his friends the moment we broke up to not make things difficult for him. There were a lot of people in his I became close to, but I stepped away, just so that things weren't awkward for any future partner. And how was it my fault? My ex explained 2 of his friends didn't like or respect his GF and thought her an airhead, and so did his parents. Our circles are, I admit, full of literature and theater people, and I admit some of them can be pretentious. Again, I told him that was him being a spineless BF and not my problem. I told my ex strongly that both Peter and his GF are my friends and I would be going to their housewarming, and his relationship issues are not my problem. I have blocked him now, and his fiancée sent a long text on how she was sorry, but now I was apparently being vindictive, and how did it matter if I didn't go to a housewarming? She asked me to not make any drama and please respect her. I didn't reply and blocked her. My friends are pissed at my ex and I haven't told my friend or Peter any of it yet. I think maybe I could have handled it any other way. AITA. Stories number 26. Idiots in the airport. L. I was asked to post more of my interactions with Karens and Kevins. This happened a few years ago at the airport. I was on my way back from seeing my daughter, son-in-law, and meeting my granddaughter for the first time where they live in the sticker patch in the western US. Mind you, I was on crutches as I had fractured my ankle in an accident the 2 days before I left home. Styling and profiling in a purple cast which was a little hard to miss, or so I thought. I was in an airport wheelchair being pushed by one of the staff when we were stopped by a Karen looking for her terminal. Now, we'd been stopped a couple times already and it wasn't a huge deal. He'd give directions and we would get back on our way to the terminal I needed to be at. Karen, however, wanted him to escort her to her destination. He told her he would get me to where I needed to be and would come back to help her then if she was still lost. Karen was having none of this. She looked down at me like I bathed in 100% grade A skunk piss, then told him that she required his help more than I did and demanded that I get up and walk because she was tired and needed a rest while he took her to her terminal. I am sitting in this wheelchair, my purse looped around my neck, my carry-on between my feet, and trying desperately not to trip anyone with my crutches, wearing a vivid purple cast on my ankle. The attendant is trying to be polite. Then she proceeded to grab my arm and try to pull me out of the seat. I'm the type that doesn't like being touched by strangers. Ever. I looked her in the eye and tell her that since my hands are full and my foot is broken, that gives me no choice but to bite her if she doesn't keep her mitts to herself. She jerks her hand back and I honestly thought this walking canker sore was going to swoon. The attendant takes the opportunity to push me through the crowd and towards my destination yet again. Giggling as he goes. We get along about another 200 feet and suddenly this little mini humanoid about 4 years old runs in front of me trying to get in my lap. We stop yet again and I'm trying to tell this kid that no, he can't ride on me, I'm in a hurry. Oh my Lanta, if I'm lying, I'm dying. He proceeds to throw himself onto the ground in front of us, flailing his arms and legs, throwing a tantrum. The attendant and I look at each other thinking WTF when I guess his dad Kevin comes up and starts yelling at me for not giving his darling little crotch mongrel a ride on my lap. Said crotch mongrel jumps up and runs back to me trying to climb up again, stepping on my cast to get to my lap. I give out a very loud resounding NO and he backs up off me. By now my mood has soured completely and I'm not in the slightest mind to humor anyone, let alone some fuck nugget trying to jump down my throat because his kid doesn't get told no enough. I lean back and ask the attendant to start pushing before I clean Kevin's clock with my crutch and require bail money. Finally, we reach my terminal. I'm pushed up by the door so they can load me in the first throng of people and I thank the attendant for his assistance. I have my carry-on on the floor in front of the wheelchair and my cast-covered ankle elevated up on it, trying to ease the throbbing, and another Karen approaches the podium. You can tell she's a Karen right away because she's throwing a spastic fit that those in a wheelchair are to be loaded first. She paid good money to be loaded in the first group and she insisted that she wants a front window seat. The door attendant tells her that is protocol and that she will be in the first group that ambulatory after the disabled people are in their seats. This very well-dressed, perfect makeup-ass maggot starts screeching that NO she will board first and SHE will pick her seat and that don't you know who her daddy is? Without batting an eyelash, the door attendant says no, but he's surprised her mom didn't tell her what her dad's name was. That little response boosted my mood incredibly along with the fact that she looks like a gasping goldfish. We proceed to start getting loaded onto the plane. The lady who was sitting next to me in another wheelchair leans over and whispers that she didn't care where they seated her but now she really wants to sit in a front row window seat. I whispered back that I'm glad there's two because I want the other one. Other than her stomping her foot like an overgrown 8-year-old when she realized both of her seats were taken, there was no other problems. It did help that our flight attendant was the one that went viral a few years ago who wanted everyone to pretend they were paying attention. I did get a selfie with her. Beaming face with smiling eyes. Stories number 27. AITA for telling my son's stepdad that he's not/never will be a father to him and starting a screaming fight. Throwaway, fake names. I, 31M, have split custody of my son, Marcus, 12M, with my ex, Lena, 30F. Lena and I split up shortly after he was born, and stayed friends, but have been less communicative since she married Eric, 42M, 4 years ago. We have had disagreements. I don't approve of certain things they've been doing and they think I spoil him, but until recently we managed to keep things civil. Marcus is a great kid and I love him. He's smart, funny, and caring, and he's taught me so much about being a human. Having him saved my life and changed it for the better. He's also more or less my only family, so I really treasure him and our time together. Recently he's gotten chubby and depressed, which I only mention because it's relevant. I was concerned over my son gaining weight but I didn't want to do much other than making sure we eat healthy. He's still active in sports, which I encourage, and a lot will change with puberty. His mom and stepdad are upset though, and I now know that they had Marcus on a restricted diet and are putting a lot of pressure on him to lose weight. At first it didn't seem like much but it became more unreasonable e.g. before this incident, I got in trouble with Eric for buying Marcus a size up in clothes, since he thought that he should trim down to fit his old ones better. I told him that I wasn't going to apologize for giving my son pants, he never responded. Last week, when I came to pick him up, Marcus was still packing his bag. Lena invited me inside for coffee and we were making small talk when I heard shouting. Apparently Marcus had been hiding snacks in his room. Eric found candy bars in his overnight bag, which they no longer allow in the house, and pulled them out to show to us as evidence. I got upset when he called Marcus names and told him he wouldn't be fat if he weren't so greedy, and told him to treat my son with respect. Marcus went to the car, and things devolved. I said the thing in the title, called him a bully, and a lot of expletives got thrown around. I didn't hear from Lena until later when she texted to tell me that she was furious with me. I was still reeling from everything, so the conversation is a blur. I tried to tell her I was sorry, but that I couldn't understand why she would allow him to treat Marcus that way. She told me that while was a bit much, Marcus broke their rules and Eric was right that he should lose weight. She also told me that I don't know anything about the disrespect Marcus gives them, that I only experienced the fun parts of being a parent, and accused me of encouraging bad behavior that she has to deal with. I had a talk with Marcus and told him I love him and he has nothing to be ashamed of. He seems better, but I'm not looking forward to taking him back to his mom's home. I know I made things worse and I should have removed myself from the situation, but I wouldn't feel right if I didn't at least stand up for my son. AITA. Hi all. This is a lot of responses very fast and I thank you for the support, suggestions, and the brutal honesty. I do think I was wrong to escalate the situation and not remove myself sooner. There's a lot of things I need to do as a father, and I value all of your feedback. I do want to respond to something. I've had a few people in the comments tell me that Eric is my son's other dad by virtue of being in that house and married to my ex, but I guess my problem is that I don't think he should be. I would be more than happy to welcome another parental figure in my kid's life. I don't think I have a monopoly on being dad for anything, but as it stands, my child hates and fears him and I do not think anyone who does that to my child deserves to call themselves his parent. I felt the same way about my bio parents, and I refuse to acknowledge them as my family, so I guess that's where that comment about him not being my son's dad came from. That being said, I know I'm in the wrong for shouting at him out of anger instead of trying to be the adult, and this does nothing to help my son. I also don't want anyone blaming any of this on my son or suggesting that he's being a dick to his mom and stepdad. He's 12 and children act out of distress when adults treat them poorly or fail them, myself included. He's the only person in this situation who's not at fault. I will keep trying to talk to my ex, get counseling for my son, and seek out legal advice. Update: thanks again for your responses. I am in touch with social services and filed for emergency custody since I don't see a non-legal way forward. Many pointed out the way my Lena and Eric treat my son would push him towards disordered eating or could be malnutrition. Unfortunately, it seems be some degree of both. I learned more what they let Marcus eat, 900-1000 cal/day versus recommended 2,500 for active preteens, which pushed him to sneak food. The humiliation is also constant behind closed doors. I fear there's more he's afraid to tell me. He's physically okay, according to pediatrician, but hurt. I'm trying to make sure he knows he has nothing to be ashamed of, and that the person who should be ashamed is the one who did this. Other things in my ex's house. Eric apparently often starts nasty fights with Marcus. He has also said some pretty demeaning/disturbing things about my background, which is unsurprising. His mom gets shouted down when she tries to defend him. She both sides the situation afterwards, holding husband and child equally responsible. Lena reached out to apologize. She said that she knows Eric was wrong and promised to try and talk sense to him. I told her this wasn't enough and asked why she went along with it. She seemed to wake up when I told her that they seriously hurt Marcus, and agreed that their behavior was unacceptable, but begged me to let her try and fix it. She seemed really tired and unwell and completely different from my former friend. I asked if she feels safe at home. She wouldn't give me a straight answer but promised that she's not physically unsafe and will seek help if needed. I feel for her but no longer trust her. I recorded the call just in case. We're in a one-party consent country, and will keep gathering evidence. Honestly, I'm scared. I was failed badly by social services/courts as a kid, so I don't have faith in them. It's also complicated because Lena and I never married. I'm a legal guardian, but we had Marcus as teens with no support and there's a complex history. I'm saving details for the lawyer to get advice specific to my situation, but I'm not letting Eric near my son. Stories number 28. My 26M girlfriend, 26F, of 1.5 years won't stop comparing herself to an old friend/fling of mine, and it is really pushing me away. Melissa and I have been dating for a little less than 2 years. It's been an amazing relationship, admittedly my only one, but I am really happy with her. We are both in PhD programs at the same university. It's where we met, but in different STEM fields. We've been considering moving in together, getting pets, and overall I'd say our relationship is pretty serious, and she has even mentioned getting married before. I can definitely see a future with her, but it's still a bit early for me, and right now I'd like to focus on my research and securing a future that can support both of us. She took that kind of harshly, but I just wasn't ready to commit to something like that yet. That was the only bump we've had until Natalia entered the picture again. Some background info: Natalia and I went to the same college for undergrad. She studies the same branch of biology that my current GF studies and is a year younger than I am. We were in the same science-related clubs and a professional fraternity together and quickly became very close friends, as Natalia and I had extremely similar personalities and interests. We spent weekends together, were each other's dates to all formal events, but we never dated even though we both liked each other and slept with each other. We were just too scared to ask the other what they wanted. It sounds silly and immature, but that's just what happened. We were essentially FWB for 2 years, but we always knew that we had very different plans for the immediate future. I was graduating before her and she was going to move to another country to work and do research before coming back to the States for her PhD. It was kind of an unspoken recognition that when I graduated, we were going to go our separate way, but we always joked that maybe we would run into each other again since we had the same dream school for grad school. We tried to remain in contact when I left, but it was just too hard on both of us. We missed each other but were busy with our own lives and eventually stopped talking. No hard feelings. It happens. We moved on. That was almost 5 years ago. Before Melissa, I used to wonder if Natalia and I could have made it together, but now that I have a girlfriend, that hasn't popped into my head at all. I am happy now, or at least I was. Last year Natalia was accepted into the PhD program at my university. It's the same dream school we talked about years ago. I didn't know this until a little over half a year ago. One day, my girlfriend came over because she was really upset. I will spare most of the details, but basically a professor in her department had told her that he had room for one more grad student to join him on one of his research trips to South America the following summer. My girlfriend really thought he was going to pick her because they had a pretty good relationship, but he had met with her and told her that there was a new grad student that already had experience with this particular species, worked with the South American university he was collaborating with, and spoke Spanish. She was denied the position and I tried to explain to her that some people just have different expertise. Over the next month, she would tell me more and more about this new grad student and how everyone who met her practically fell in love with her or found her extremely interesting, that she was super cool, fawned over her, etc. etc. It made my girlfriend extremely sad because she has always had issues with insecurity and feeling like she has to try extra hard for people to think she's worth anything. I tried to tell my GF that she is great at what she does and to stop comparing herself to other people because it just makes her upset, but she said, no underscore 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 underscore. You haven't seen her yet. She's extremely smart, she's been all over the world, she's a literal 10. Natalia is utter perfection. I kind of froze at that moment because somehow I immediately knew this was my friend. I kept trying to tell my GF all the ways I admired her, but I realized it wasn't helping, so all I would do was listen to her and be someone she could vent to. I admit I was curious, but I didn't want to complicate things for Melissa, so I didn't try to contact Natalia or find out if it was even her. A few weeks later, however, I ran into her at a cafe on campus. It was really great to see her again. We sat with each other for about an hour and a half, just catching up with one another. I told her about my research and she told me about hers. She had accomplished so much for herself in the few years since I had seen her last and I was so happy for her. I told her I had a girlfriend who was in the same department as she was and she asked if we could all hang out sometime since she was still new to the town. Natalia seemed really excited and not at all disappointed. We exchanged numbers and parted ways. It felt evident to me that we had moved on. Whatever romantic feelings we had for each other were purely platonic now. We were both doing very well and genuinely happy. That night I told my girlfriend that I ran into Natalia and she was actually a really good friend of mine from college. I knew my girlfriend felt really insecure at work and in the lab and I did not want her to feel threatened within our relationship. I suggested we all have lunch sometime so she can meet her because I actually thought they could get along. GF was kind of taken aback and immediately started asking me if I ever liked Natalia, if she was my ex and if we dated. I said no, we never dated, we were only friends, but I did like her a lot. I reminded her that this was 4 years ago and that I have not thought about her at all since I started dating GF. GF left the house for the night because she said she was really stressed and didn't want to think about it right now. I felt like I had done something wrong and decided I wouldn't mention Natalia again. Ever since that night GF would ask me really strange questions like if I thought she was smart enough. Of course I think she's smart. The university we are at is one of the best in the nation. She then said, well, you and Natalia went to XX Ivy League University for undergrad and I went to XX State University, so she's clearly beat me both time. I was appalled and told her there is no competition. I am with you. It doesn't matter where you went to undergrad, look at where you are now. She just wouldn't stop talking about how much more experience Natalia has and how much better her resume probably looks. She would ask me this multiple times and it really upsets me to see how much she works herself up over these things. What's worse is when she compares her looks to Natalia's. Lately Melissa will not stop complaining about how pale she is, how easily she sunburns, how short her hair is, how nothing fits her well. She says, I wonder how Natalia stays so skinny, I wish I was mixed like Natalia. Natalia is so exotic looking. I always tell her how beautiful she looks, how attractive I find her. Melissa is beautiful. I love everything about her even though she doesn't. I would never say this to Melissa, it's even difficult to write, even though Melissa has said it to me, but Natalia is definitely more conventionally attractive woman in terms of arbitrary societal beauty standards, but that doesn't matter to me. I don't love my GF just because of her looks, but it's so difficult to convince someone that you find them attractive when they want to jump out of their own skin. I have caught Melissa stalking Natalia's Facebook profile, Instagram, lab page. It's ridiculous. I can't understand why she does it when it gets her so upset. Melissa isn't fat at all, but lately she has been rejecting me when I try to initiate sex because she feels fat or not sexy enough, and I think this is due to the aforementioned insecurities. I try to talk her through them, but it always ends with the same conclusion and she says, I'm sorry, I'm not goof enough. I only talk to Natalia in the cafe. We have lunch together maybe twice a week, but we never plan it. I have always ate lunch at the same time at the same place and Natalia will come in every few days, and when she does we sit together for about an hour and talk. Occasionally she will text me before lunch asking if I'm there or planning on going there, and that's the only time we text or talk outside of the cafe. I feel like this is an appropriate amount of communication for two friends. I feel bad for never being able to hang out with her, but I know it would upset Melissa. There have been a few times when Melissa has joined me in the cafe and Natalia has sat with us. Honestly, Melissa is straight up rude to her. At first I think she tried to be nice but just got too upset. She either remains silent or responds with really short cold answers. It makes me really sad because I know Melissa is struggling with insecurities, but Natalia is a really good friend of mine who has only been nice to me. She has invited me and Melissa out numerous times and each time Melissa declines. I once told her I was going to attend a comedy show with Natalia. It was a comedian I once took Natalia to see in college, and Melissa broke down, so I decided I wouldn't ever go anywhere with Natalia unless Melissa was there too. Some of you might say, why don't you just stop talking to Natalia? Is she more important than your relationship with Melissa? I don't really know what to do. I see Natalia for 2 hours a week and we don't hang out or even talk outside of that. I have given Melissa no reason to think I am cheating or being unfaithful. Natalia has only ever been a good friend to me and I shouldn't have to cut her out of my life when she already plays such a little role. It feels kind of unfair to me because honestly, sometimes I wish I could see Natalia more because she's a really wonderful, interesting person, but Melissa is definitely a priority in my life, so I have kept our friendship very casual and minimal. I think there is a bigger problem in that Melissa is not the same person I entered a relationship with. She's sad, always stressed, much more cranky and snappy with me. Her insecurities make her shy away and retreat into herself, so it feels like I can never reach her anymore. She has been denying me sex and complaining about how she isn't good enough for me, and it has honestly been pushing me away from her. I find that I no longer want to deal with her insecurities and constantly validating that I love her. I have suggested therapy before because I think the real problem is not Natalia but Melissa's underlying insecurities. This is not normal and it causes her so much unnecessary stress. Melissa always says, okay, I will think about it, and when I bring it up again she gets really defensive, asking me why I think something is wrong with her. I don't. I just think a professional would be able to help her work through her own thoughts better so that she can accept herself more, because clearly, what I am saying to her doesn't get through. It's hard to see her so unhappy. Edit. Because someone asked, I should have clarified that I also told Melissa that Natalia and I slept with each other in college. I didn't hide that from her. I can see why that would upset her, but I really tried to stress how long ago it was and how I was happy with Melissa now, and the past does not affect anything about how I feel now. TLDR, my GF Melissa has a borderline obsession with my old FWB Natalia. She won't stop comparing herself to Natalia, and it has been making her stressed, insecure, and depressed. No matter what I tell her, she claims she isn't good enough for me, and it has been making me feel less attracted to her. She refuses to go to therapy, and I feel like this is only going to take a bigger toll on her life. How can I help her? My 26M girlfriend, 27F, cut my ex-FWB out of pictures in an album my mother made for me. She ruined pictures of my friend that passed away, and I'm heartbroken. May 13, 2017. Alright, so I posted here a few weeks ago concerning my GF Melissa and my ex-FWB from college, Natalia. The gist of the story was that Melissa kept comparing herself to Natalia, who is a grad student in her field of biology, who she feels is basically the epitome of perfection. It got to the point where Melissa would spend hours staring at pics of Natalia, and every time I tried to be intimate with her she would shut me down, saying she wasn't good enough. I got a lot of sh*t in the last post because Natalia and I ate lunch together a few times a week, but as a lot of commenters suggested, I eat at a different place now and no longer see Natalia. I think Natalia took the hint and we haven't spoken since I posted that. Anyway, I'm posting now because I feel Melissa's obsession with Natalia hasn't gotten better at all, and she did something that I'm not sure I consider forgivable. When I graduated from college, my mom made me a photo album of pics with me and all my friends doing whatever it is college students do. It means a lot to me, because I rarely see my old friends, and unfortunately, one of them passed away, so these are physical representations of cherished memories. Yesterday afternoon, I received a Facebook message from my late friend Dan's mother. She asked me if I had any pics of Dan from our fraternity events. We were in the same professional fraternity. I said of course, and that I would scan them and send them over to her. I looked through my album and was suddenly shocked to find a few pictures in which Natalia was cut out of the photo. Some were just of me and her, some were of a group of friends. After flipping a few more pages I saw one that broke my heart. It was a picture of Natalia, Dan, and a few other friends during one of our formals, as we were all in the same fraternity. I kept searching through and found that this was the case for maybe 12 pictures, 3 including Dan. It felt like I had swallowed a pound of rocks, and I honestly just felt so angry. I knew it had to be Melissa, as I would never have done this. I sent the uncut pics to Dan's mom and texted Melissa, asking her if she was still on campus so we could meet. When I saw her, I asked her why she cut my photos, and she said, "What are you talking about?" But I could tell from her face, she knew she was caught. I was so furious. I told her that it was extremely disrespectful and that she had no right to destroy them the way she did. I even mentioned that some of the pictures she cut were taken with my friend who had passed away, and now she had ruined them. She immediately started crying and apologizing, saying she didn't know what came over her. She said she still has the pictures of Natalia and that she can put them back together. I felt like I was going to explode, so I just excused myself and left. Melissa has been blowing up my phone, but I haven't read any of the messages or listened to the voicemails. I feel so drained. I got a lot of shit on my last post, so I bet a lot of you will think I had this coming. I know I can't convince you of how hard I've tried to make Melissa feel like she's the only girl I wanted to be with. No matter how many times she has asked me if she's pretty, if I find her sexy, if I think she is smart, I always tell her how amazing I find her, but it just isn't enough. Maybe I should have never ever spoken to Natalia when I found out she was attending the same university as me, but I don't think that gives my ex-GF, the right to destroy my property. The album has literally sat on my shelf for years. It's not like I look at it every day and fawn over my ex. I have never even shown it to Melissa, so she must have been snooping through my belongings, which honestly I wouldn't even care about if she hadn't destroyed the pictures of my dead friend because of her petty jealousy. I just feel exhausted. I feel like I'll never make Melissa happy. I could have done things differently, sure, but I feel like she never tried to work on her insecurities and confidence in herself either. TLDR, my GF cut my ex-FWB out of photos in my album, and I feel like this is a huge overstep of boundaries. Some of the pictures she destroyed were of my friend that passed away, and I don't think I can forgive her. I, 27M, think my ex-GF, 28F, is stalking my friend, 26F. Wondering if there is something I can do. Dang, can't believe I remembered the password to this account, but here we are. This time, it's not really about me, but I thought it would be most appropriate to post on my account since it's related to my ex-GF, Melissa, who I had posted about twice. Feel free to creep through the history. My ex-GF Melissa was very jealous of my old FWB/her colleague Natalia. Her obsession was extremely unhealthy and she did something to me that I considered unforgivable, hence the breakup. Now this was 8 to 9 months ago, and since then Natalia and I have rekindled our friendship. She knows why Melissa and I broke up, and felt very guilty, but she was always a good friend to me and I like having her in my life. I know I am going to get a lot of shit for this and people will say they saw it coming, but whatever. I'm not asking for judgment. What's done is done and I thought we had all moved on. Last month, me, Natalia, and a few of our friends were out playing billiards. As I was giving Natalia and her roommate a ride home, the roommate says, "N, did you tell him about the thing?" Natalia responded no, and her roommate pressed her, but she stayed firm. I texted her later to see what was the matter, but she assured me it was nothing. This past week, her roommate called me and asked if we could meet up. She sat me down and said that she thinks me ex-GF is stalking Natalia. I was taken aback but not completely shocked at this accusation given Melissa's past. She told me that it started out with obvious fake FB profiles sending friend requests and then vile hate messages. Then Natalia was getting calls from random numbers that said they were following up Craigslist escort ads with her name, picture, and number. Roommate knew about the picture situation and immediately suspected Melissa. That was a few months ago. Last month, Natalia and some friends were heading back from the movies, and a guy in Melissa's grad school cohort saw a car parked along Natalia's street and said, "Hey, what's Melissa doing here?" This freaked her out, as she had seen that car parked there several nights a week for the past 3 months. This was the thing she didn't want to mention to me. This week, her growth chamber was contaminated. Apparently, someone let disease-carrying aphids into a few sections of the greenhouse and ruined a few of the grad students' crop/plant experiments. I'm not a biologist, sorry, the details. Anyway, it was a pretty big deal for the grad students who needed to restart their experiment, including Natalia, but her PI thought it must have been some undergrad who forgot that you're not supposed to enter the greenhouse after being in the aphid room. Her roommate, who is in the same department as Melissa and Natalia, thinks it was foul play on Melissa's behalf. Apparently she's been bad-mouthing Natalia ever since we broke up. Obviously that is a very strong accusation with no real proof, so she hasn't spoken to administration about it. It is really scary to think Melissa would go to such a length to hurt somebody else. It sounded to me like Natalia is being stalked, but she doesn't want me to know. I brought it up with her yesterday and she confirmed what the roommate said. She dismissed the greenhouse incident saying she doesn't want to think someone had it out for her. Also she thought it was unlikely because the risk was so great. If it was done on purpose and the person was caught, they would be expelled from the program without a second thought. She did admit to having the feeling of being followed and that she'll be at a grocery store or cafe and think she sees Melissa there too. She thinks she's just paranoid and letting her roommate get to her head, but that this happens more frequently since we've started hanging out. I asked her if she has spoken to Melissa or wanted me to say something and she said absolutely not. I'm feeling like this is all my fault and I keep screwing up. If I had left Natalia alone after breaking up with Melissa, this wouldn't be happening to her. I haven't spoken to Melissa since the breakup, only to return the items she kept in my house, and I don't think speaking to her about this would do any good. I wouldn't doubt that Melissa is capable of stalking and or sabotaging Natalia's work given her history, but I haven't seen anything with my own eyes yet. Is there something I can do before this gets worse? In my last few posts, many people said I had handled things wrong, and I want to make sure I do something right for once. Do I stay out? Do I investigate? Please give me advice and not judgment right now. I am worried for my friend. TLDR, I think my ex-GF is stalking my friend. Ex-GF has history of jealousy and unhealthy obsession with friend and I am wondering if there is something I can do before it escalates. Stories number 29. AITA for refusing to contribute money to my mom's family Christmas gift after finding out it's going to my brother. I, 25F, have 2 siblings, my older brother Alex, 28M, and my younger sister Lily, 19F. My mom recently came up with this idea for a family Christmas gift that we would all chip in for. She told us it was something that would benefit everyone and wouldn't reveal what it was, just that she needed us to send her $500 each by the end of the month. Now $500 is a lot of money for me. I just started a new job and am still trying to save up after struggling financially for a while. I told my mom I needed more details before I committed, but she kept brushing me off and saying it was a surprise. A few days ago, I found out the truth. Lily let it slip that the family gift is actually a down payment on a new car for Alex. Apparently, his car broke down recently, and he needs a replacement. My mom thought it would be a good idea for all of us to pitch in and get him something nice for Christmas. I was furious. Alex is 28, has a stable job, and makes way more money than I do. On top of that, my mom never asked any of us if we were okay with this. She just assumed we'd all go along with it. When I confronted her, she said it was only fair since Alex does a lot for the family and deserves it. I told her I wasn't contributing and that it was ridiculous to call this a family gift when it's only for Alex. She got upset and said I was being selfish and ungrateful. Alex chimed in, saying I could afford it if I really cared and that I was just jealous of him. Even Lily sided with them, saying it's not a big deal and I'm ruining Christmas by making this an issue. Now my whole family is mad at me. They're saying I'm cheap and that I'm being petty over something that's supposed to be a nice gesture. I feel bad for causing tension, but I also feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Stories number 30. Wibta if I don't tell my wife that her best friend tried to kiss me. I have been married to my wife for 2 years, she and her best friend has been friends for more than 15 years, way before I met my wife or her and TBH I never saw or noticed ever that my wife's friend has something for me. Her friend and I have been alone quite often and not once did she try to make a move, it has always been platonic. Her friend I will call her Lynn, for obvious reasons. Lynn and I have been close, not that close but close enough to consider each other as friends, and I didn't have a problem with it, neither did my wife. Lynn visits us almost every week or twice a month give or take. My wife doesn't drink but I do and Lynn does, so whenever she visits us we both drink and spend time together. Sometimes she brings her boyfriend, sometimes she comes alone. But 2 days ago Lynn showed up at our home drunk. She was so drunk she couldn't even walk properly. I still am surprised how she drove herself to our place. I asked her to come inside and she was crying so damn much I thought something bad happened to her. I tried to comfort her but she just hugged me and kept saying that she wished she could find a man like me and all of her boyfriends dumped her and kept talking gibberish. I just stood still and let her vent. But suddenly she started kissing me and I was shocked for a moment but I shook her off of me and asked her what that was about. She said she was sorry and I asked her to stay away. She kept crying and apologizing but I asked her to stay away. After a lot of talking and her venting, I knew I can't let her drive so I dropped her off and when my wife got back she asked me why's Lynn's car here. I told her everything except kissing part. Since then Lynn has been texting me a lot and giving me a lot of explanation and begging me to not to tell my wife and she will not repeat the same mistake and she genuinely thinks it was a mistake or so I think. She keeps saying that if I do tell my wife she will lose her best friend. I haven't replied to her yet and I didn't tell my wife either. But I am kinda scared right now. On one hand I don't want my wife to lose her best if she really has made a genuine drunken mistake, cause she was really fucking drunk, but on the other hand I shouldn't be hiding stuff from my wife and if it ever comes out my wife will probably stop trusting me. I am kinda stuck here. I know she will be hurt but should I hurt her? It's no affair or sleeping if she was under the influence and if we can bury it all up and move and me and Elle stay away from each other going forward. Update. I decided to tell my wife everything. I thought about it a lot and decided that I should tell her everything instead of hiding it. TLDR, my wife's best friend showed up at my place. She was very drunk. I helped her but she was so drunk she kissed me but she couldn't even walk properly so I dropped her off. I told my wife everything except that her friend kissed me. So after a lot of thinking and finding a way to get past all this I decided to tell my wife. When I told my wife everything, she was pissed, angry like never before. She asked me why did I hide it from her, why I didn't tell her. I said I was scared. I hoped that I could hide it all and I didn't want you to lose your lifelong friend over a mistake, but then I realized that if I continue to hide the truth from you I might end up losing you and I don't want to lose you. My wife asked me if I ever cheated on her. I said I never cheated and never will. She started crying and said how can I betray her when she trusted me so much. I hugged her and said I never betrayed her and will never betray her. I am coming clean cause I don't want to lose you. I was as shocked as you are right now when she kissed me. My wife after she stopped crying said that I am not allowed to talk to any of her friends and I am to stay away from other women except our family members. My wife also asked me to block Lynn. When I asked her what she will do, she said it's between her and Lynn and I don't have to worry about it. She demanded open phone policy and complete transparency from me. I agreed. She said if I ever try to hide anything from her no matter what it is she will leave me. I agreed cause I don't ever want to hide anything from her. I don't know what happened and what both of them talked about and my wife wouldn't tell me either. all she says is, "None of my business." She's still super pissed at me and I try my best to make her happy and ended up doing embarrassing private stuff for her which I never was and still uncomfortable to do so, but at least my wife is happy. I do not know what else I could have done, but I tried my best and gave it all. I came clean, told her everything, did everything she asked from me and tried my best to please her. She's still angry but at least she is with me and isn't leaving me unless I make another stupid-ass mistake. Stories number 31. AITA for calling someone out of their white elephant gift that was significantly under the spending criteria. A social group that I'm a part of held a white elephant gift exchange last night. Participation was by absolutely no means mandatory or even expected. The event was divided up between two pricing tiers, under $25 to $50 and $75 to $100. The majority of members went with the less expensive tier for obvious reasons, and there's absolutely no stigmata within our circle for doing so. In fact, only 9 out of our nearly 40 members chose the more expensive tier, myself included. Well, I was picked to go third and I selected a gift that was wrapped quite beautifully, thinking that was a good sign, but I was disappointed to discover the gift was a hot chocolate set that certainly wouldn't have met the criteria of the lower range, let alone the one we were participating in. I could tell the others in the group felt roughly the same just by the looks on their face, and my focus was directed to one woman, Jen, who was looking away, clearly embarrassed. As you might imagine, no one took my gift. Now I know it's petty not to be happy with what you're given, but let's be honest here in saying that Jen was throwing in the sort of thing you'd find on clearance at Walmart knowing full well she'd walk away with something pricey in turn. In this case, Jen wound up with brand new Keurig. I discreetly pulled our social group's leader aside and mentioned my concern to her. She expressed she wasn't happy with this herself and that she'd even tried to tell Jen not to participate with the more expensive tier because it was well known that Jen wasn't doing great financially, but Jen had sworn up and down that it wouldn't be an issue. We didn't want to disrupt events, so I was asked to put on a kind face and to avoid talking about the gift for the remainder of the evening, which I accepted as people were trying to have fun. This morning I received a long-winded text chain from Jen, expressing how frustrated she was that I demeaned her by complaining about her gift. She went on and on about how nice it must be that I can simply throw my money away while others, like her, are struggling, and that her income shouldn't mean she can't have nice things. Instead of fighting, I forwarded the texts to our group leader, and I've since received word that Jen would no longer be a member of our social group. Now, if I'm being honest, I do genuinely feel bad because I know how happy being a member of this group made Jen. She has had a lot of setbacks in her life. I do not hate her or hold any negative feelings for her at all. I simply felt she was knowingly taking advantage of the rest of us to basically trade up beyond her means. AITA. Stories number 32. Wibta if I throw all my mother-in-law's things out of my house after she moved herself in. My MIL had previously moved in with us, and we had to kick her out due to her behavior. Then she moved in with her boyfriend and he kicked her out too. She had been staying with a friend temporarily but had to leave because the friend's daughter is coming home from college and needs her room back. I came home from work yesterday to find that MIL had moved herself back into my house without permission from my wife or me. We had left the garage door partly open to charge a car. We can't get the car inside the garage because MIL has stuff stored in there, so she somehow got it all the way open and found the spare key we hid in the garage to let herself in the house. She had moved some things back into the guest room and was sitting in bed watching TV. MIL will be at work all day tomorrow while I have the day off. I'm thinking about putting all her stuff outside on the curb or renting a pod to put it in and changing the locks. Wibta for moving her out. She really doesn't have anywhere to go besides her car, and her stuff might get stolen or messed up. People have seen bears around. Stories number 33. AITA for cutting off my sister and telling her she's no longer welcome in my house after threatening to sue me. So I, 26F, have a sister, 31F, let's call her Jane. Jane is not my bio sister but we grew up in the same household. For as long as I can remember Jane has had this victim mentality. Mom died when she was young, Dad was never in the picture but my mom her aunt/godmother took her in. She lived with us for 13 years before she got married and moved to Idaho with her husband. We never had the best relationship growing up but I assumed it was just sibling rivalry and we would grow out of it like me and my baby sister, 25F. My mom passed away in 2020 and Jane thought it was only right that she inherit my mom's engagement ring even after declaring at the funeral that my mom was not her mom, just a woman who helped raise her. I then moved back into my parents' home because I felt bad for my dad and didn't want him to be alone. After converting the top floor of our 3-story home into a mini apartment for myself, Jane raised concerns that there would be no space for her to come home to during Christmases. But we made do. My dad recently paid off the home and signed the deed over to me under the condition that he live there rent-free until he dies, since I had been helping him pay the mortgage and would continue to pay the taxes on the home. I dismantled the apartment on the 3rd floor, making it once again a 5-bedroom home. However, 2 of the bedrooms my sisters used to occupy are now a walk-in closet and a room for my dogs. I added a pool, a new bathroom, renovated the kitchen and turned the basement into a bar lounge area. I told her I was not selling and that my dad signed it over to me. She then said she would call someone to appraise the home and I would then have to buy her and my little sister out. When I told her again that I owned the home, I was not selling and she wasn't getting any money, she threatened to sue me. I told her to leave. A few weeks later she called my dad to ask what the plans were for Christmas and if I was going to be staying in a hotel, since I could not be cordial. My dad told her I would not be staying in a hotel, but she was still welcome to come and stay with us. I politely informed him that she nor her family were welcome to stay, and if he needed to stay with her over the holidays he could also stay in a hotel. Now she's called my whole family and gone on a campaign of how evil I am for doing this over the holidays. Most of my family agrees with her except a few who do not want to be involved, saying that she only said she'd sue me out of anger after realizing something else was taken from her. Her mom, her dad, my mom, now her childhood home, which leads me to believe that maybe they are right. Am I being too harsh on her after all her struggles in life, or is she simply just a bitch? Edit. Little sis is fine, please stop worrying about her, she's not a problem, hence why I did not list everything she got from our mom or our dad. Update. I suggested my dad stay in a hotel with Jane because he was insistent that she spend Christmas with him. I didn't say he couldn't live with me anymore. I don't think it's unreasonable to not want to be around someone who wanted to sue and may still try. I also got the engagement ring. I thought it was crazy that someone declared that's not my mom but wanted her ring that my dad bought. Also, little sis got the wedding bands. Dad also gave Jane significant amounts of money to open her own bakery. Little sis took over his business. I got the home, and the retirement and life insurance will be split in 3 when, if, he passes, cause he can't die, tbh. Update. 1 month later. The family wedding was over the weekend and everything there was great. No drama. I kept my distance from Jane. The bride was not outstaged at all. Well, not by me and the drama at least. However, Sunday after the wedding my Aunt Renee called me to ask if I would be coming to dinner to celebrate Christmas early since Jane was in town and would not be coming for the actual holiday. I politely declined, said I would send the children's gift with my dad, but there was no need to go and pretend that I was over Jane's behavior. My aunt then said I would be upset too if you refused to give me my share but gave little sis her share. That really shows a divide. I asked her to say that again because I think I hallucinated. Jane really has been out here saying I split the house with my little sister when I did not. I explained to my aunt what actually happened, and then my dad confirmed the information I gave. My aunt was shocked. Not only had Jane lied to her and the whole family, she also lied and said my dad never gave her anything. He gave me the house, my little sister his business, and Jane a lump sum of money to start her bakery since she had no interest in running the family business. Renee and my dad are both upset with Jane but still believe that I should forgive and forget and move forward. Renee is going to talk to Jane tomorrow before she leaves to go back to Idaho, but I'm not sure it will do anything. Not a great/entertaining update, but I guess I felt compelled to finish the story. At this point though, I don't care if I'm the AH, I was surprised by the amount of comments saying I was, but I don't need any more stress from these people. Stories number 34. My 25F, BF, 26M, got his mom a nicer Christmas present than me/his sister, and I got the same gift. I feel weird about this, so how do I move past it? Hi. Title sums it up, but to elaborate, I, 25F, have been dating my BF, 26M, for about 3 years now. The relationship is great, we never fight, agree on basically everything, have same timeline for next steps, etc. However, one thing has always been touchy, his mom. I'm very close with my mom and I think having a relationship with your parents is important, but his mom is definitely a classic boy mom, like no one is better than mommy. He doesn't really seem to realize it, which is also bothersome. Here's a few interactions I've had with her. First time I met her, I made oatmeal chia banana bread, my own recipe, and added some other fruits because I was told she eats very clean and so do I, but she didn't eat any of it, lol. Not a huge deal I guess, but I made it specifically for her so I felt weird. A bit after this interaction, my boyfriend was being distant and I could just tell something was up, so I asked him if his mom said anything about me. He was honest and told me that she thinks I want a ring on my finger right now, want to trap him, would follow him to his next city with no plans of my own, etc. This was all said following the very first time I met her and gave no indication of any of those things to her. And actually did the opposite, like I told her my career goals / getting a master's degree. I was frustrated that he switched up on me because of things his mom said, things I have never said / or even indicated to him. I told him that all of those things she said are untrue, and if I wanted those things, I would have just said it. There's more interactions than this, but these were some of the most memorable. His mom told me that she was the reason he and his ex broke up. To which I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Okay, more backstory on the issue of the presents. My boyfriend is an awful gift giver when it involves me. He got me a ring, one like a love knot ring, which was super sweet, and he told his mom and she freaked. So ever since this, he's been giving me like basic gifts, and I feel like it's because of what she says. So he had some packages come into the apartment and I was moving them out of living area, very tiny apartment, and a card from a luxury jewelry company slipped out with the receipt and a card that says, "To Mom." He spent over $1,000 on her, and I think he got me a sweatshirt from my college because he asked me my sweatshirt size and then sent me what he got his sister, which is a vintage sweatshirt from her college too. I just feel weird he got me and his sister the same gift. His parents are millionaires and she's frequently gifted jewelry or cars. TLDR, BF got me and his sister the same gift, but got his mom some luxury jewelry. Edit, I also feel the need to add that we got pregnant and I had a miscarriage. It was incredibly painful and emotionally taxing. I would think that the almost mother of your child warrants a nice, thoughtful gift. He also never told his mom about what happened. Stories number 35. AITA, I might have ruined my parents' marriage with ASMR. AITA, so I, 20M, listened to ASMR every night to sleep. My stepfather was having trouble sleeping, so I of course recommended he try ASMR. Well, he did, and my mother downed out and thought it was weird that he was sleeping to women whispering in his ear. They fight about it pretty often because she considers it strange and borderline cheating. He stopped, but she still brings it up and I just can't help but think it's all my fault. AITA. Stories number 36. Luke the electrician checking in after 21 years. Hello, Luke the electrician here. I would have responded sooner, but I was off traveling to NYC to see a musical, Book of Mormon, and go to the 2024 nanny ball with my babe of a wife. I'm glad so many of you enjoy the little note I left behind a couple decades ago as an optimistic 25-year-old about to start making real money after getting my 01 journeyman license. It was not customary for me to leave notes on jobs, but sometimes a little drawing or an encouraging note to the next person in a crawl or confined space, never an FU. It could be difficult enough navigating spaces many people can't fit into. Penciled notes from the 30s, brushstroke autographs in the old paint shop upstairs, or dirty limericks carved into solid wood walls from the 50s, I certainly thought it would be more than 20 years before someone found a note I left on the back of a junction box cover. But internet stuff would develop and happen and I'd be answering for it to lovers of harmless mysteries, and tradespeople in the PNW who wonder if we've crossed paths. Being a blue-collar electrician, I was jealous of the new people and international travel some of my college-bound friends had experienced. Within 18 months of writing this note on metal, I took off for hitchhiking in Ireland, buying Electroclash records in Berlin, getting hit on Boy George in London, and to leave my work a nighttime voicemail letting them know that 6 weeks traveling wasn't enough and I'd be back home in a couple more, and if they didn't like it, oh well. That trip I met and befriended guys in the London area band Armitage Shanks, and a couple years later was asked, despite not knowing how at the time, to play guitar on their upcoming US tour. So I learned how. World travel became US travel with my pal Stacy in garage punk whatever band Pony Time. My Seattle musical career perhaps peaked with the infamous Stallion show with brutal attack on me at the Rock and Wrestling Rager in 2017, which sent me to the hospital, and the band broke up before we could finish our record deal. For those wondering, it was not Sub Pop, they were too small. Only a few rare copies of the double cast single are out there, don't even look to buy one unless you have real folding money. I travel now still, but not as hard as I did before. I don't hitchhike to Canada anymore or sleep outside if I don't have a place to stay. I guess I travel less dangerously. These days, I probably would get all the suggested shots and anti-malaria stuff before going back to India again instead of just saying forget about it like I did in my 20s. The part of traveling I used to do more was the show up and figure it out, maybe without a place to stay, no map, and take it from there. That kind of travel is almost obsolete, what with computers and phones, but it was exciting and thrilling at times, being chased by muggers outside Battersea, or stopping a break-in at a hostel, getting free classical music performances at churches in the day and clubbing at night in Europe. So I made a record with a 4-track tape, not knowing how to play any instruments, and released it by mailing 3 to 5 copies to select dance record stores around the country, and a few around town. I sold exactly 1 copy at the time of its release, and never collected any consignment. Tube alloy, the detection of subatomic particles, started to get interest from underground dance and lofi people, and 12 years after its release I was shipping cases of the record to Canada and Germany for distribution. I'm rambling here, but I just wanted to share some details of what I was cooking with at the time, where travel led me, what it brought me, and the trajectory it set me on. It's not been easy, but it's led to a more fulfilling life, better understanding, and a way to connect with people when I may have so many other difficulties connecting. It's also easier when you're younger. At 26 I was way more willing to sleep on the floor under a dining table because that was the only spot available. For by IBEW Brothers, hello. I'm no longer a member, I've given up construction in 2022. I was in Local 76 last, but started in 46 before getting booted out in my second year, which is why you may not find me on a list there. The cartoons were so funny and rude that some management got a hold of them and they got faxed around the company's job sites all over Washington, and yeah, that kind of thing will get you fired and banned from some certain Seattle area apprenticeships around 1999/2000. Before they made foremen take mandatory classes on how to not call people, redacted. I hope it's been a mildly interesting read for you. It's been fun for me dipping down the road of rocky memories, and thinking back on my rush to see some of the world before it was all catalogued and digitized by someone else. I still want to travel to former Eastern Bloc countries and see some of the brutalist and modern USSR architecture before it disappears or becomes inaccessible. I miss a lot of my Seattle friends, but maybe I'll see you around when I'm not living in the hills of North Carolina. AITA for telling my mom moving to my grandparents is putting me first because nobody else will, because I have the wrong parents. I, 17M, have a really complicated family. I have older and younger half-siblings on both sides. Of all the siblings, I'm the only one without a full sibling and the only one who never gets prioritized. My dad has 3 women he rotates being with: Ann, Jane and Heather. Dad has 2 kids with Ann. He has 3 with Jane. And 3 with Heather. 3 of Dad's kids are older than me and the other 5 are younger. My mom has 2 guys she's dating on and off, Hank and Phil. She has 4 kids with Hank. 3 with Phil. Hank's been in her life since high school and she was a teen mom to her oldest, first kid with Hank. 4 of Mom's kids are older than me, 3 with Hank and 1 with Phil, and 3 are younger. My parents basically had a fling that lasted less than a year, and by the time I was born it was over. I think Mom was back with Hank when I was first born. I also think Dad has been married to Jane this whole time, but I don't really know. I was bounced between both houses more frequently than any of my friends with divorced parents would be. Sometimes I spent a week or more with one parent, but other times I'd be a couple of days in one house and sent to the other and sent back. I was also very alone because I didn't have a sibling to share it with. Like, yeah, I had half siblings, but they all had full siblings. So my parents, while maybe they cared a little, maybe they cared way more about the kids from the longer-lasting relationships. My mom's extended family saw her as trash and treated us kids the same way. My dad's parents are amazing and they kept me sane when I was younger, and they have grown more supportive as I get older. And I asked them a few months ago if I could move in with them. They said of course, and I slowly moved to their house. I didn't want to get either parent weird about it. They might not care as much about me, but I'm pretty sure they don't want to look bad with a kid leaving before 18. My dad didn't care, which was expected, and he told me to pack the rest of my stuff at his house and he'd let me go to my grandparents. But Mom was pissed when she realized I was already living here by then. Mom asked me what the hell I was thinking, and she said I needed permission because I'm still a minor. She called me selfish and told me I was bringing negative attention onto our family. I told her moving in with my grandparents is putting me first, and since nobody else will, because I have the wrong parents. She told me I'm an overdramatic teen, and just because my half-siblings don't accept me doesn't mean she hasn't been a damn good mom to me. She told me I'm throwing everything away and being rude about it too. AITA. Stories number 38. AITA for breaking up with my girlfriend because of a caught cheating prank. I, 26M, broke up with my girlfriend, 25F, of 2 years because of something that happened recently, and now my friends are saying I massively overreacted. So, a few days ago, my girlfriend and a close mutual friend decided to play a prank on me. The prank was that they filmed a scenario where I caught them in bed together, pretending they were hooking up. They set up a hidden camera in the bedroom, and when I walked in, I saw him in just boxers and my girlfriend in a bra and panties, straddling him, acting like they were mid-hookup. To make it more realistic, they even made some noises and tried to act like it was happening for real. I was shocked, furious, and immediately confronted them as I thought it was real at first, like an actual betrayal, and then I walked out of the room and started leaving the house, when they followed me screaming it was just a prank and then showed me the video they'd been recording. To be honest, I felt completely betrayed not just by the idea of the prank, but also because of how they had gotten undressed to film it. I know it's meant to be funny to some people, but for me, it felt disrespectful, and I was hurt. The whole thing felt like a violation of trust, even though I know they weren't actually cheating. I told her I couldn't be in a relationship with someone who would do something like that, and I ended things right there. She's devastated, and our friends have been telling me I overreacted. They think it was just a harmless prank and I should have taken it better. But I can't shake the feeling that it crossed a line for me, especially with how intimate and uncomfortable it felt to see them in that situation, even if it wasn't real. Now I'm left wondering if I made the right decision. I'm starting to doubt myself because everyone else seems to think I blew it out of proportion. Edit, I did not expect this many responses. Thank you guys. She posted here earlier and sent me a link to her post. I know she wants me to watch the video to prove it was all set up and planned, but I feel she still doesn't get that I am upset about her disregard and disrespect for me and our relationship. Anyways, I am going to sign off for the night. I think my boyfriend is overreacting for breaking up with me over my caught cheating prank. AITA. My boyfriend posted here a few hours ago and shared the link with me to show me what people thought about what I did and that he is not overreacting. I thought I'd come on here and give my version of events for a more nuanced take. I planned the cheating prank with our close mutual friend several days ago. We were hanging out and scrolling through TikTok videos and came across prank shorts between couples. We went down the rabbit hole and ended up watching YouTube videos of cheating pranks, and I mentioned it would be funny to try a cheating prank on my boyfriend to find out what his reaction would be. He said he would do one with me and I agreed because it was someone my BF liked and trusted, so I thought it would be harmless. It started out as a hypothetical plan, but over the course of the conversation and while hashing out details, it turned into a real plan and we agreed to the day we would do it, when my BF would be out and come back home to find us together. We set up the camera and filmed ourselves talking about the prank and set it up on top of the dresser in the bedroom and got into position. We were laughing throughout and it is all on video. To make it believable, I told him to take off his shirt. He said I should probably do the same, so we did. Then he thought it would be even more believable and provide that shock factor if we also took off our pants. In hindsight, this was a terrible idea, but I agreed to it. You know how the rest of the story went from his post. But what he didn't mention is that he refused to watch the video I recorded showing that it was a planned prank, that we only took off our clothes and got into sex position when we knew he was home. I understand that this prank was extra and hurtful to him, and for that I am sorry. But, I am not cheating on him and I did not mean to disrespect our relationship. I think him breaking up with me is a massive overreaction because other than this incident, which I now massively regret, our relationship was great. We shared 2 wonderful years together and moved in together over the summer. I plan on deleting the video and won't be sharing it on social media, but I will share it with him first for proof of my intentions. Stories number 39. AITA for snooping through my GF stuff for her Christmas present. I wanted to get her a nice Christmas present to cheer her up. I knew she loved perfumes. She had a pretty expensive collection. When I was over at her apartment, I took a picture of her perfumes. She had a lot of samples too, so I took pictures of those. I found a perfume that I thought she would like. She loved her Christmas present. I told a friend how I got my GF the perfect present. He was in trouble with his wife because he flubbed his gift. He said it was creepy, too much effort for a rebound, and I should never tell her. I was planning on telling her. I didn't think it was creepy. AITA. Update. Thanks for the feedback. My GF did exactly what I thought she would do, and she asked how I got her the perfect Christmas gift. I could smell the perfume on her, which made me happy. I got her zoologist bee and hummingbird. Based on her collection, she liked gourmands, sweets, and florals. She liked complicated scents and had a few niche ones. She didn't have any zoologist scents yet, so I also got her a few samples. A couple of people suggested I shouldn't tell her about opening her perfume drawer to look at her samples. But I didn't feel right hiding that. So I told her that I took a few pictures of her perfume collection and all her samples so I could get her the perfect present. She was quiet for a while. It made a bit nervous that I messed up. But then she hugged me and smothered with kisses. She said I was the perfect boyfriend and she wanted to marry me. I was thrilled since she was a bit reluctant to get in a relationship with me after being burned. To be clear, she didn't cheat, her husband cheated on her and left her for his coworker. They legally separated and my GF moved into her new apartment. I met her a couple months later. She asked me out the day she met me because she thought I was hot. We went on a date and I told her I wasn't a casual relationship guy, so she had to be fully in. We started officially dating 6 months ago and it's been a dream. She got me an awesome birthday present too. A trip to a country I've always wanted to visit. She had been asking me about my vacation days and when I planned to use it. My GF said she wanted to plunge into zoologist, but she had a few hang-ups. Her ex thought she was wasting her money and scolded her about it a lot. He even threw away some of her perfume, which makes no sense. She thanked me for breaking that and getting her her new signature scent. Shout out to all the fragrance subreddits for helping me find the perfect perfumes. Stories number 40. AITA for telling my MIL she will never see my child and not feeling bad about it. My husband and I are having problems from his parents and it's getting to a point where they think harassment is funny. My husband said he will file a police report because they're actually crazy. They're doing this all because they don't like me, but I'm not backing down. I always had problems with my husband during our dating stage. His aunts and grandparents didn't like me, but I didn't care. His family is very racist, which is why he moved far from them. At the beginning of our relationship I actually never met his mom because he didn't want me to be around her or his family. One of his family members found out he had a black girlfriend. That's how all these problems started. My husband's mom said she doesn't want a half-breed for a grandchild. She will never claim her grandchild if it's from me. It's crazy someone can still be racist. I lost all hope for this country. His aunts and grandparents felt a type of why. They said it's all my fault for stealing my husband from them. I remembered my MIL words and stood my ground. No racism was going to be around my child, only around love. My husband and I were not concerned for them and he cut his entire family off. We had our first child last week and it's been nothing but peace, heart with ribbon. My husband family found my Facebook. It's private but they can request message. I got a lot of threats from them. Like they're so weird. There was a request from my mill. She went on about how she wants to see the baby and the baby needs to be around their grandparents. I wanted to laugh, it wasn't happening. I should have just left it as that, but I text back and told her to stop harassing my family and no, she will never see my child. I blocked them, but most definitely getting a restraining order against them. Stories number 41. AITA for cutting all contact with my family because of a prank. So I have posted a story on here before and I got some pretty good advice, so please help. Here's what happened. I, 27F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family. They've always been the type of people who think any joke is fine as long as someone laughs, no matter who gets hurt. Over the years, I've tried to brush it off and not let it bother me too much, but this time, they crossed a line I can't ignore. Naturally, I wanted to share this milestone with my family, even though our relationship has always been rocky. A few weeks ago, we had a family dinner to celebrate my new home. Everything seemed fine at first. They congratulated me, asked about the house, and seemed genuinely happy for me. But halfway through the night, my brother, 30M, and sister, 25F, handed me an envelope. They said it was a surprise to help me with my house. Everyone around the table started laughing, and my brother yelled, "Gotcha." Turns out, they had faked the letter and thought it would be hilarious to see my reaction. I burst into tears, which only made them laugh harder. They even recorded the whole thing on their phones to post on social media. When I finally managed to speak, I told them how cruel this was. Buying this house was the biggest thing I'd ever done, and they turned it into a joke at my expense. Their response? "You're so sensitive. It was just a prank. Lighten up." I left the dinner early, completely heartbroken. A few days later, I decided I'd had enough. This wasn't the first time they'd pulled a prank like this. Over the years, they've humiliated me countless times, once ruining a job interview outfit by accidentally spilling coffee on it, another time pretending to lose my dog just to see me panic. I cut off all contact. I didn't make a scene, I just stopped responding to messages, blocked them on social media, and declined invites to family events. Now, I'm getting guilt-tripping messages from extended family saying I'm being selfish and tearing the family apart. My mom even left me a voicemail crying about how much she misses me and begging me to come back. But I can't bring myself to forgive them. This prank felt like the final straw, and I don't see how I can trust them again. So, Reddit, AITA for cutting off my family over this prank. AITA for refusing to help my coworker after he took a dig at me for finishing my work early. I, 40M, work in a pretty fast-paced office, and last week, my coworker Mark, 34M, and I were both working on separate but related parts of a big project. I'm someone who likes to plan my time carefully, so I started early and made sure my portion was finished a day before the deadline. That morning, while chatting near the coffee machine, Mark made an offhand comment in front of a few coworkers, "Must be nice having enough time to stroll around the office. I'm drowning over here while some people are on cruise control." I brushed it off at the time, but honestly, I found it irritating. I don't stroll, I just manage my workload well. Fast forward to 5 p.m. that day. I'm packing up to leave when Mark comes to my desk looking stressed and says, "Hey mate, I'm not going to finish my part on time. Can you stay late and help me out?" I calmly told him I couldn't, I'd already done my share of the work, and I had plans that evening. He got frustrated and muttered, "Typical." I didn't argue, I just left. The next day, Mark missed the deadline, and our manager wasn't happy. Now a few people are saying I could have been more of a team player and helped him out. I can't help but feel like if he'd asked respectfully instead of taking digs at me earlier, I might have been more willing to stay. Stories number 43. AITA for announcing my pregnancy to my family. My sister-in-law, 37F, has been trying to get pregnant for almost 3 years now and have had a very rough and tough time trying to conceive. It has always been a sensitive subject around the family, and my husband, 29M, and I, 29F, have held back from having our second child due to this reason. We wanted to give her the chance to have a child before we tried for another one. We always wanted to have our first child to be closer in age with their next sibling. Our little one is turning 4 next year and we said now is the time. We tried and had a miscarriage. A month after that we are all happy after knowing we are pregnant again. Overjoyed by news, I shared the news to the family. SIL was upset on how I shared the news and family was pretty in the middle. Ultimately I can't share my pregnancy to anyone until after my first trimester so I don't hurt SIL feelings. A week after that happened, I shared a story on my social media of a funny skit of a pregnant woman wanting to eat healthy but her pregnancy cravings is telling her to eat chocolate instead. SIL was so upset and told everyone she won't be attending Christmas with the family. And that I wasn't understanding her and how hard it has been for her. At this point, I just don't even want to be pregnant, so people could stop making me feel bad for even expressing any small thing about pregnancy. Edit, I shared my good news through our family group chat that we use to communicate with each other. And I also shared it with my overseas friends on my social media when the baby was due. Stories number 44. AITA for going off and suing my son's judo trainer after discovering he's verbally abusive and sometimes physically hurts him. So, this is a tough one, and I'm still processing everything, but here it goes. My son, 14, has been attending judo classes for about a year now. He's been really passionate about it, and I was proud to see him develop both physically and mentally from the sport. He looked forward to his practices every week, and as a parent, I felt that his confidence and discipline were growing. But something started to feel off recently. Over the last few weeks, I noticed that my son wasn't excited to go to practice anymore. He'd been coming home from judo looking more upset each time, but he never told me exactly why. At first, I thought maybe he was just having a bad week or maybe some of the drills were getting harder, but the change was so noticeable. He just didn't seem like the same enthusiastic kid when it came to judo anymore. One day, a few days ago, he came home looking absolutely devastated. He was clearly upset and near tears, and when I asked him what happened, he just said he didn't want to go back to judo anymore. At first, he wouldn't tell me why, and it took a lot of coaxing and reassurance before he finally opened up. When he did tell me, it was something I could never have expected. He said that his judo trainer has been verbally abusing him during practice. The coach would make harsh comments, call him names, and make him feel worthless in front of the other kids. He even said that the coach sometimes hurt him physically during training, though not enough to leave bruises. He described rough handling, being forced into uncomfortable holds that seemed unnecessary, and some moments that felt like intimidation rather than teaching. This wasn't just a one-off incident either, it had been happening over the last few weeks, and each time, my son became more withdrawn and upset about it. Naturally, I was furious and devastated. I couldn't believe that someone in a position of authority, someone who should be guiding and encouraging kids, was treating my son like this. After getting the full story from him, I immediately called the coach to confront him. The guy denied everything, of course, claiming that my son was just weak and too sensitive. He also made a few excuses about toughening him up, which only made me angrier. Not stopping there, I reached out to other parents whose kids were also in the judo program. To my shock, several of them told me that their kids were having similar experiences and didn't want to attend anymore either. Some of them said their kids had mentioned the verbal abuse but hadn't said anything about physical stuff. After hearing this, I felt even more sure that I wasn't overreacting and that this wasn't an isolated incident. I then made the decision to take legal action. I went to a lawyer and started the process of suing the trainer for both verbal abuse and physical harm. I'm not sure how this will play out, but I'm hoping it will make him face the consequences of his actions. So, AITA for going off on this trainer and suing him after finding out he's been abusing my son and other kids in his class. Let me know your thoughts, I really need some perspective on this. Stories number 45. I think I caught my girlfriend cheating. What do I do? I 18M called my girlfriend, 19F, and for some reason I got the glitch where it answers a few seconds before it answers on my end. I heard a guy say, my girl's name, who is, my name. I asked her on the phone who was talking and she said the TV. I clarified saying I heard both of our names. She dodged the question and I asked again. She just answered with, yeah, that's weird, we have been dating for 4 months. I know it's not long but we're really close at this point and spend almost every day together. At this point, what do I even do? I have had no reason not to trust her until now. And now I'm having doubts. The fact that I heard both of our names is really making me uneasy. TLDR, I think my girl is cheating because I heard another guy on the phone asking who I am in the background. Edit, I'm going to work things out in the next few days. I didn't think anyone would be invested in this. 2 to 3 comments, tops. I really appreciate everyone's response and input. I'll try my best to respond to everyone. Thanks everyone for your concern and best wishes. Edit again, for some more context and repeated questions I'll include a little more info. Yes, we are supposed to be exclusive. I do not think I am the one she is cheating with. I haven't noticed much different behavior. We spend most of the day and usually the night together. This took me by surprise. She's always been open with me about everything. I could almost instantly tell something was off, even if I ignored her mishap before she thought she answered or whatever the phone did. Stories number 46. AITA for getting rid of my old things when I replaced them with new things instead of giving them to family that might need it or want it. After I healed from my divorce, I decided to refurnish my home to make it 100% my space. In the process of doing that, I cleaned out my wardrobe, linens, and even my cookware of items I just didn't want anymore. Right before my new furniture and items arrived, I called a junk removal service to remove the old items to make room. They're quick, and the items are gone and out of my hair for good without me having to do any heavy lifting. My sister came over, saw everything was different, and asks me what I did with all of my old stuff. So I told her. She immediately gets on my case about not offering any of my old items to her. I rolled my eyes and asked her if she needed a new sofa, would she still sit on her busted one if I wasn't getting rid of mine. Fast forward to the end of that day. My other siblings and my mom called and texted me to berate me for the same thing. I didn't owe them a chance at my old things, did I? I don't even think they needed any of it. They just liked the idea of getting free stuff. They also like to hoard, which I do not. Stories number 47. Worst maid of honor and best man toasts I've ever heard. Cringe. This was back in 2015, but oh boy has it stuck with me. I was attending the wedding of my best friend's older sister. It was an absolutely gorgeous wedding in the bride's parents' backyard, which her dad had spent the better part of a year landscaping and perfecting for this occasion. I think it's important to note this because despite being in a backyard, it was very much a classy event. The bride and groom were in their mid-20s, had been together since their junior year of high school, and had both gone on to become teachers. Truly, two of the best people that I know. My BFF was one of two maids of honor, the other being the bride's best friend since age 5, P, and the best man was the groom's best friend since high school, M. I've known all of these people for a very long time, so I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't what happened. P went first, and from the moment the DJ put a mic in her hand, it was a disaster. First and foremost, she was absolutely shit-faced drunk, so she's stumbling all over the dance floor while attempting to give her speech. The entire speech is essentially just incoherent inside jokes between P and the bride, which it seems that the bride can barely understand because P is slurring her words so badly. Champagne was this girl's drink of choice, so because of the carbonation, after every single sentence she was hiccup burping and then saying, okay. She eventually reached the end of her speech, never once mentioned the groom, did not actually toast to the bride or groom, and flitted off inside the bride's parents' house. When she returned 20+ minutes later, she was no longer in her bridesmaid's dress and was wearing a pair of my BFF's jeans and a sweatshirt from her childhood bedroom. She proceeded to spend the night twerking barefoot with one leg hiked up on her husband's shoulder in front of the bride and groom's elderly relatives. M was up after P, and I think everyone was expecting better. M begins a lovely speech about how he and the groom had met, how they had become best friends in high school, and how when the bride and groom got together, M knew that it was the real deal and that they would be together forever. Q 100 all woo s from the crowd. But, notes M, things could have turned out very differently. Why, you ask? Because M decides to share with everyone, on the happiest day of his best friend's life, that the groom originally had a crush on P, the maid of honor, and wanted to ask her out back in high school. However, another one of their friends had asked P out first, so the groom ended up asking the bride out instead. The room is dead. Fucking silent. Everyone is looking around at each other in shock. M is giggling into the mic and finishes up his speech with something along the lines of, well, thank goodness everything happens for a reason. Cheers, and scampers off the stage. Luckily, the bride and groom are unnecessarily good sports and did not seem upset by either of their speeches, but holy cow was everyone else appalled. My BFF and her dad both gave absolutely wonderful toasts after those two to kind of make up for them, but my family and I still talk about those two train wrecks on a regular basis. The bride and groom have been very happily married for almost 10 years and have two beautiful daughters, so all's well that ends well, but good lord, if you're giving a wedding toast, please read it to at least one other person before you get that mic in your hand lol. Stories number 48. AITA for refusing to split a $500 raffle winnings with my GF. Not the a-hole. My girlfriend, 22F, and I, 22M, of 1.5 years are on vacation with my family and we go to a cornhole tournament with my cousin. At the event there are a few raffle boards where you can buy a square for $10 a square and the winners can get various prizes. To give some background in our relationship, I pay for 80% of the expenses in our relationship, i.e. going out to dinner, activities etc. And she then pays for the other 20%. However, when she pays she uses her parents' credit card and not her own money because her parents can afford to do so and she is a college student. Then after I go up to collect my money my GF says, oh so we're going to split that 50/50ths right? To which I respond, no I don't think so. She then continues on to ask me to buy her new shoes or new jeans with the money that I won, then finally she says that I should put the money in an account for an engagement ring. I again refuse to do any of those things and respond with telling her that I will pay for the drinks and food for the night, then take her out to dinner a different night. I also have to add that almost every time that I gamble, i.e. buy 50/50 raffle tickets, play slots, sports bet, etc. She responds with something along the lines of, you shouldn't be wasting your money on that, you should be saving up for a ring. It seemed kind of cliche to me that when I win money from gambling, she wants 50% of it, but when I lose money she says how I shouldn't be wasting my money. AITA. Stories number 49. I am so incredibly tired of listening to men, and occasional women, go on about how bad they don't want daughters. They constantly say boys are cheaper, less to worry about, less work etc., when in reality it's just misogyny. It's okay to have a gender preference for sure, but when someone is so against having a certain gender they just shouldn't have kids at that point. I saw a comment thread of men, with well over 5,000 likes today, saying they want multiple kids but don't want a daughter. The worries associated with a girl. Most common comment, teen pregnancy. But somehow not worried about their son causing one. Other worries included our *PE and SA, not wanting to pay for period products, which is interesting considering when the debate about how expensive they are comes up, it's always men who get all pissed saying to suck it up, they aren't that expensive, they can't be free, but when it's to justify not wanting a daughter. 2,000 likes from mostly men. A lot of these men were saying they wanted multiple kids but praying to not get a girl. It's interesting how they want a woman to grow and birth their children but are horrified at the idea of those kids might be the same sex as her. Not to mention the comments of men saying, my wife wants a daughter, praying it doesn't happen, like do you even love your wife? You're praying she doesn't get to experience having a daughter just because you have issues. I just can't even listen to it. One thing is for sure, I would never ever have kids with a man who talks like that. Gross. Stories number 50. Advice needed. So I, 25F, have a roommate, Sarah, 26F, who recently started dating this guy, Tom, 28M. I cook most of my meals from scratch because I enjoy it, and it's cheaper and healthier for me. Sarah's fine with it and occasionally I'll share leftovers with her when I make extra, no problem. I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to be rude, but last week I came home to find he'd eaten an entire portion of food I'd prepped for my next day's lunch. I finally confronted Sarah about it and said I didn't appreciate Tom eating my food. She brushed it off, saying he's just comfortable here and that it's not a big deal. I told her it is a big deal because I budget and plan my meals, and if he's eating my food, it throws everything off. I made it clear I wouldn't be sharing anymore, and I asked her to let Tom know. Fast forward to yesterday, I made a pot of chili, and Tom came over while I was out. When I got back, a big chunk of it was gone. I was furious and told Sarah that this was exactly what I was talking about, and it needed to stop. Sarah said I was overreacting and called me stingy for not sharing food when it's just a couple of bites. Spoiler, it's not. I told her I'm not her boyfriend's chef and that I don't owe him free meals.